Claire,
Jay,
what?
where are you?
In the board meeting.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Why do you have to answer me like that though?
Because you're asking. I sent you a text.
I didn't see the text.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Petra.
Here.
Brittany Carr,
Here.
Sean Halloran,
Here.
Anthony Manley,
Here.
Timothy Newton,
Here.
Amy Parati,
Here.
Sam Sharma, Jessica Weaver, Anastasia Yap. I have Mr. Sharp.
Thank you. Our first presentation is CABE Award. So we have a guest here. Yes, Ms. Dr. Brema, would you please introduce our guest?
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to bring up to the mic Miss Lydia Tadone. She is a Board of Education member in Simsbury. She's also serves on the Board of Directors for CABE, CREC, and the National Association of School Boards. She's here to award many folks this evening for CABE, a variety of CABE awards. So welcome.
Thank you.
I think I'm just going to use my
Oh, we
teacher
need-
voices. Oh,
we
you
need
need
it
them
for-
for there. Okay. So this is probably one of the happiest nights for me to come to Newington Public Schools. You have art awards that I think you're going to be giving out or you've been giving out. You already did it already. And I see a lot of students and smiling parents sitting here and I believe you might be getting some awards too. So it's always great to come to Newington Public Schools for these presentations. With that being said, as Dr. Rowe had mentioned, I am on the Board of Directors for CABE, and I'm a board member in Simsbury. But I'm here tonight to present Newington Public Schools with a stack of awards from the past year. And these are all the efforts that Newington Public Schools has done through their curriculum and teaching and students and everything. So I must admit, I've been giving a lot of awards out recently to a lot of districts. In Newington, you guys are getting 5 awards, so you are really high up on that list. So you should give yourselves a hand. You should be really proud of yourselves. So it is absolutely great. So these awards are awarded the Bonnie B. Carney Award of Excellence for Educational Communications, and Newington Public Schools has qualified by meeting many criterias. So with that being said, I'm going to present these awards, and they look like this. I was here last year, and I don't remember having such a stack of awards, so this is really great. So, and I look forward to coming next year, and we'll see how many you'll be getting next year. So, the first award is, you want to stand up and grab these awards? So, the first award is from 2023, and we awarded these awards last fall at our convention, is the Award for Excellence for Educational Communications presented to Newington Public Schools for WKMS School Broadcast News. So congratulations. Okay. With that being said, the next award is presented to Newington Public Schools, and this is for all things live stream. So congratulations.
We have some live stream students here who are
Oh, okay.
The principal of Newington High is here to accept the award on behalf of the
Oh,
students.
wonderful. Please come on up. We'll take a picture after, so please stand here and holding your award and congratulations.
Thank you.
Very well deserved.
Thank you so much. Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Oh, It is really for the students and the production crew at Newington High School under the direction of Jacob Trowbridge. All Things Live Streams was nominated for all the things they've been doing since COVID. We're being seen and heard all over. So families who can't be at events or events where we don't allow parents to come in, but they can still view from home, all over pretty much the country. So we're very proud of our students and our team at Newington High School.
Well,
So
you
thank
should be.
for
Fantastic. Great. Very, very good. All right. Please stay there. And then our next award is presented to Newington Public Schools, and this is for the JWMS Student Handbook. Oh, wonderful. Mr. Dice, congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Excellent, excellent. Would you like to say something?
Sure. Yep, I would give a shout out to my assistant principal, Mr. Torillo, Marco Torillo, who does our student handbook for us. And we try as much as we can to, make it clear and concise with families. And we have taken steps over the last few years to shift our handbook to have a little more student voice and parent voice. And our Board of Ed actually as well has done a great job in helping update the handbook particularly around the dress code that we have, to hear more, from our community, make sure we have an equitable practice for all. So it's a community effort to make the handbook. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful. Wonderful. Yes.
Assistant principal from Martin College.
Oh, and the assistant principal from Martin Kellogg is here? Oh, please come on up. Don't be shy.
Online is our education technology director.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, great. Oh, okay. Please stand here. Wonderful. So again, this is for WKMS School Broadcast News. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. This goes out to all the kids. And thanks, Tara. This goes out to all the kids at Martin Kellogg who get up. They're every morning telling everybody, what's going on, making sure the parents know what's going to be happening in our school, and the kids really look forward to it. So it's a real shout out to those kids and the hard work they do.
It's fantastic. Great, 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 great. Okay. You're on a roll here. The next award is resource website. And
That gentleman is online.
Mr.
is
Salerno,
he online? Oh, very good. Where is he?
it's right there.
Oh, hello. I'm sorry. I can't have my glasses on. John, congratulations.
Thank
Would
you so
like-
much.
Would you like to say a few words about your award?
No, I just think it's great for all the support that we get from the Board of Ed and the community to continue to communicate to our families, which is so important with all our efforts with our mission and vision.
Great. Well, congratulations. Keep up the good work. All right. We'll leave that here. Okay. And the final award is presented to Newington Public Schools for the Office of Equity and Inclusion website. Okay. Very good. Where are you, Jay? Oh, same one. Okay. What would you like to say about this award?
Ditto.
Clean up here.
We're all good.
Great. So we'll,
Thank you for all the support.
well, you deserve it. So congratulations. Keep up the good work. Great. Okay. Would you like to stand and we'll take a picture for Kay? Where's my phone? Oh, it's right here. Oh, and then. Okay. Can I have you take a photo of us? Thank you. All right, great.
Thank you.
Mike.
We can do this, and I'm sure. Very good. Okay. Don't worry, the students are next. Great. Thank you. Thank you. To hang your awards. Great. All right, sure.
Okay. We are now on to the student awards. So we have from CABE, Connecticut Association of Boards of Ed, we have an honorable mention for JWMS Summer Newsletter for Families. Is that it? Oh, I'm sorry. Where he is, Mr. Dice?
These are honorable mentions.
Okay. You are on a roll. Stay up here and hold that in front. Okay, your next one is another honorable mention for the Parent-Student Handbook for Newington High School. So please come up. That's fantastic.
All right, that's
Great. Wait.
it for those. Now we
The-
can move on to students.
Okay, we're going to move on to our students.
So I do have a description of why these students were, what I chosen for these leadership awards. So let me read that because it's a pretty impressive list. And again, my apologies to our attendees. We're having technical snafus to say the least. But the CABE Leadership Award is a very impressive award. I have a description of it right in here. Students were nominated by their school principal for exhibiting distinguished leadership in school activities and daily life. The criteria for this award are based on their leadership skills, which include willingness to take on challenges, capacity to make difficult decisions, concern for others, ability to work with others, willingness to commit time to a project, diplomacy, ability to understand issues clearly, and the ability to honor a commitment. Now, Ms. Tadone, do you have the names, or would you like me to read them? All right, I'm going to read the names, and then as I call your name, please come up for your certificate and a group photo. From Martin Kellogg, we have Miss Anaya Lewis. Come on up.
Congratulations.
And why don't you stay up, honey? We're going to do a group photo. From John Wallace, we have Emanata Han. Come on up.
Congratulations. Well deserved.
We have another award winner from John Wallace, Mr. Cameron Santos. Very good. Thank you. And then from Newington High School, we have 2 award winners. Our first award winner is Miss Maggie Woods.
Congratulations, Maggie. Well deserved.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Danielle Pichardo. That would be Daniel Pichardo. All right, let's do a nice photo.
Photo up, if you don't mind. Thank you. Good. Oh, thank you. All right.
Oh, look at the paparazzi.
Look at that.
This is sort of like graduation, but it's actually not as intense.
Great. Congratulations. And again, congratulations to all the students and the staff that make.
I do have, I believe I still have Vivi.
Great place to be, a great place to grow. So with that, any more awards? I'm gonna roll.
I would just like to thank you for coming all the way out, Ms. Tadone, to award our students and our schools with the variety of awards this evening. Thank you very much for your time. I'm told we have projections, so I'm gonna see if that's the case. Yes, now we're gonna move along to our, yes, we can do that.
All right, our next set of awards is for the parents that spend a lot of their time volunteering and making all of our schools a better place to be. They do so much for supporting not only the students, but the teachers and staff at the school. I'm a little biased because I got my start in on Anna Reynolds PTO so many years ago. So I definitely know the hard work that everyone puts into it. So our first is Anna Reynolds PTO. We have our president and our treasurer of the Anna Reynolds PTO.
Hello.
Oh, and our secretary and vice president are also
All
here
members
today
should come
too.
School by school.
I love you guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Do we have any representatives from Elizabeth Green PTO here? Anyone online?
I don't see.
Well, we appreciate you, Green, too.
Elizabeth Green.
John Patterson PTO. Hey. Congratulations. Thank you for everything you do. Would you like to say anything? No. No? Okay.
Let's do a photo op.
Our Ruth Chafee PTO. Mr. Holler, are you on the PTO?
Not anymore.
Former member of the PTO. We have John Wallace Pack. Principal Alpha. And then Melissa did the Wizards game. That was amazing. Oh, you're on Wallace too. Thank you.
She's kind of joining me. I'm not going by my.
Thank you. Another one of my PTOs, Martin Kellogg. Thank you so much. Love you guys.
We're all special.
These are my besties. I've known them since preschool. And the last one that we have is our Newington Septo PTO, which is a new, which is newly formed. It's across the whole district, and their main goal is to support our special education students. And they have done amazing things this year. I was fortunate to be at their resource fair, and it was just awesome. There's so many vendors and so many people, just lots of information. So these two women are awesome and amazing. And thank you for everything. Just in the short year that you've been in existence, you've done so much for our community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. I think that concludes our PTOs. Yep, our last appreciation for the evening is for, I saw something, for NCTV. They do log into all of our meetings and they record and they post on channel 14, 16 and their website. So yeah. Want me to read that?
Yeah, I'll read it.
You want to read it? Thanks.
All right. Appreciation to NCTV. The Board of Education would like to share appreciation with the NCTV staff for the support provided in communicating Board of Education meetings and various school activities to the public. It is a pleasure to turn to channel 14 or 16 to view programs related to our school system. It is important for the school district to provide information to the community on the accomplishments and needs in Newington. Many members of the public have commented on viewing the presentations on channel 1416. It's an additional step to foster greater communication between the schools and the community. The board would like to make this small donation to your organization. We sincerely appreciate your support. So a check will be sent along to NCTV to honor their support of our school system because they rely on donations to operate. So once again, thank you to NCTV.
All right, at this time, I'll open up to board comments for any of our awardees. Mr. Holleran.
Thank you. I promise I'll keep it brief, which is not like me. There has been a mountain of awards tonight. And I think if you boil it all down, the individual efforts themselves are impressive. But the way we're able to come together as a whole system and community is more impressive. And the way we ensure that every student is treated with equity and fairness and given the chance to succeed on your own abilities is just amazing to see some of these things get recognized. This is the spark. Keep up the momentum, keep it going. We need people like you in our community, hard workers, smart thinkers, creative minds. All those things are really, really important. As somebody who had an incoming fifth grader to John Wallace this year, Mr. Diaz, I did read that whole handbook cover to cover. It was well written. And for all of our PTOs, PACs, Septo, I think I found out about you at the Waterfall Festival, went by your booth, learned all about you. You've done amazing things in 1 year. As Amy has said, You know, we're both previous members of PTO organizations. It can be thankless, but you do it for the right reasons. And we wouldn't be here today if probably we didn't get involved with the PTO. And my wife telling me I needed a hobby. So she's like, you just got an unpaid job. That's not what I meant. But thank you to everybody, especially the students. You're the only reason we're all here. Just to see the achievements of the students and the staff and faculty together makes me feel like we've got something good in this town. So let's keep it going. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being here. Definitely huge congrats to the students. It's definitely a big accomplishment to be recognized for your efforts, and glad you could be here today so that we could help give you the awards. I know a lot of you are moving on. Maggie, we're moving on to new schools, but thank you for being part of our community, and the staff and parents of the PTOs that we have in the town too. I know just work so much for everyone. So we really are a community, and just very grateful for all of you in the room for making this Newington Public Schools amazing. Thank you. Okay, now it's time for public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. So if you're in the room, you can come up to the end of our table, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Just state your name and address. And if you're online, you can raise your hand. We welcome any participation. I do not see anybody who would like to speak tonight. So we will move on to our consent agenda. Mr. He has a motion.
The motion's on the screen as well.
Thank you. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Beatrice.
Just a quick point of clarification on the approval of minutes for April 24th. I've had the pleasure and the honor of being at many senior awards ceremonies last week or so. And I just want to clarify, Alexander Tong is salutatorian. I was under the impression he may be co-valedictorian.
Yes, he is the co-valedictorian. That was an adjustment made about a week ago.
So we can have the record reflect. Does it need to be clarified?
Sure, if it's misrepresented on the notes, that would be an amended component to the notes, so we would do that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So can we approve with the amendment?
As amended.
Okay.
So probably need a motion.
Yeah, so we need a motion to amend.
I would like to make a motion to amend, was it the approval of the May 15th meeting?
24th.
The 24th. I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended for the April 24th, 2022 meetings of the Board of Education for the town of Newington.
24.
24. Thank you.
And do you approve the second, Brittany? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Dr. Brummett, I'll turn it over to you.
Beautiful. I believe we have Mr. Lambert online. He is on location at CCSU, if I'm not mistaken. And I'd like him, if you're able to, Mr. Lambert, to introduce the presentation here this evening, and then we'll bring up our esteemed colleagues to discuss building thinking classrooms.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Lambert. I'm the principal of Martin Kellogg Middle School. Unfortunately, I can't be there today. I'm actually in class right now multitasking. I'm actually at Central right now, and I was able to step out for some coursework that I'm doing here. And I'm very excited to present to you a building thinking classrooms model that we have been utilizing through the course of the year that's really gained quite a bit of traction in terms of really engaging our students, really active learning that really builds a conceptual model in mathematics, and students have really taken nicely to it. We've seen some nice gains that we wanted to showcase to the board and thank them for their investment in supporting this work. So it's my pleasure to introduce a couple of people. Some are going to be in person, some are going to be online. I believe John Bruno is there. He's one of our grade 7 math teachers. He should be there in person. We have Amber Bidwell, who's also, she's available as well online, and Michelle Kellogg, our math department coordinator, who helped facilitate this and sort of help kind of drive this work. So this is not going to be a stand and deliver, Newington Board of Education. We are going to put you in a classroom setting and set you to task to actually experience a task in the building thinking classrooms model. So get your math brains working and be good students. I don't want to be giving any detentions this evening. I expect nothing but the best. And I'd like to give the stage to some of our math staff. And again, I thank you very much for the opportunity tonight.
And this is your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert.
Our Google Slides.
You
here.
can. It might be easier for you to share it with me.
Okay, I'm
And I'll post it.
on the Google Meet. Am I able to share my screen? Would that be easiest?
You can try.
Let's
Why
see
don't you
if
try
I'm
that?
allowed. Am I allowed? I am not.
Technology is definitely not our.
Oh, wait, there we go. See?
See if that works. Are you on the Vivi as well?
No, we're just on the.
I'm on the Google Meet right now.
All right, you are in.
We'll give this there.
I'll make it.
Okay, great. So the first thing that we wanted to do with you all this evening is have you take a couple of minutes to reflect on what your math experience was like when you were a student in school. So John is coming around with some sticky notes here. So we're going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes. Jot down as many things as you want of what was your experience like in mathematics when you were a student. Okay, so we'll give you a couple of minutes just to jot down what that was like for you. Another 30 seconds or so. Wrap up those thoughts. Okay, so hold on to those thoughts of what your math experience was like. We are going to not just show you, but have you experience what is going on in our 7th grade math classrooms right now in the building thinking classrooms model. And then after this, we'll have you come back to those sticky notes.
So right now I'm coming around just classic having pick a card.
I think you
That
should
card,
microphone.
oh, sorry. That card is going to tell you where you're going to be doing our task for tonight. This is one of the elements of a thinking model, and we'll go into those models after you have some experience with it. I apologize, Mr. Farisi, because you will be stuck with whichever card is left at the end. So you are group 4. So what you are going to do, you should have a group, and there is going to be either 2 or 3 people within your group, and you're going to go to one of the 4 stations that are mounted on the vertical surfaces in the room. So there's one over there by the door. There are 2 over there by the TV and closet, and then there's a 4th one on the end there. This is your task that you are going to do with the people that are going to be in your random group. So your job is to think of any numbers that add up to 25. And your goal is to try to get the largest product. So as an example, if you imagine 25 is the same as 10 plus 10 plus 5, so you would multiply 10 times 10 times 5. Or 25 is the same as 2 plus 23, you would do 2 times 23. Or 25 is 25 ones all added together, you would add them all together and then multiply all those numbers individually. Your job is to try with your group of random people to try to get the largest product that you can. So we'll be testing some of your math fact abilities here, but don't worry, you have one or two other people to help you out with it and try helping you out, try and figure that out. We'll do this for maybe 5 to 7 minutes just to sort of see what that feels like. What you're going to do is once you and your group claim a whiteboard space, you'll get an eraser and a whiteboard marker, okay? So all of the 2s find each other, all of the 4s find each other, 5s and 6s. And then once you gather together, find a spot wherever you'd like to claim and go from there.
Who's this kid? I hope you know it, man. All
right. Well, I think we should probably roll through. All right. Well, because if you multiply it though, those 1 times 1 is all 1s. One thing they haven't put up there is 25 plus 0, but then I'll give us 0. So I wonder.
Calculators are allowed. You've got it.
All right, so are there going to be any more up there besides the
That is the only example that you can. So you can come up with anything that you want, as long as it adds up to 1. So you're going to take 25
20 times 5, what's that product? And then, 12 plus 13 is 25. That's 12 times 13. Is that bigger than the 20 times 5? Or what's the
and
largest?
you're trying to make the biggest possible error.
So you're trying to get a bigger number.
So in that first example, if I did 25 ones and I multiplied it all together, which is bigger than 5.
Right.
If I remember 20 times 5, that would be my 100. So you're just trying to make them as big as you can.
So we're going to do the 25 equals 10, 25.
We're not using 25, right?
So you're starting with your 25, splitting it into whatever pieces you want. I'll do it.
And not really. But I've seen this before.
You would then multiply these 3 pieces.
So what? 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 5 is 500.
Okay, so far that's your biggest product.
Right. Right. So you do first you break it apart and then you make the product. So we have to kind of, is there anything more we can do with 25? You know, 25.
Try to get even bigger than you thought so far.
Right. So this, what else can we do to break apart 25? They've also got, they haven't put up their 5 plus 5.
64 times
All right,
9.
try that. 10. What is 15 times 10 again?
Oh, really?
Deb, you could be our calculator. What's 15 times 10? There you go. All right.
You can, if you feel like you're not confident in your math ability, it's okay. It is a math resource, it is a tool, right? You have to come up with the numbers you're using, so it's totally.
125 times 5. That's where that comes in. 125 times 5.
That's 567.
Oh, we're getting there. 125 times 5. 625 times 5.
I can't do it.
There you go. Verify. This is 25 times 5.
Ooh, 3 times 125.
Yeah, this is our biggest so far.
Right, we got a strategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So what other possibilities are here?
It's okay if it's like, we were just trying out random things.
I haven't tried going. I was just talking to the whole time trying to run it back in. I tried forcing it back out. It's still there.
That's a great question.
I think there might be.
All right, take another, like, let's say like, yeah, like maybe 2 more minutes to try and get the largest product that you can. That would not work? No, I just realized. We're out of practice for some of these skills, but you're bound to go.
Another 4?
All right, you have about 30 more seconds.
16, that's 17.
That's the highest you've gotten? Okay. So take a moment to cap your marker. So cap your marker and just take a note of, I hate to do this, where I'm asking you to stop doing the thinking, and because now you're starting to get into it, right? Now you're like, oh man, what's going on? How is this working? And I can do better. I can do better. So I want to call out a couple of, Amber and I came around, we were making notes on just some of the highest ones you had gotten so far. The highest that we have, I believe, in the room is in the 6,000s. So 6,912. Now, between the both of you, absolutely. So now, what I loved hearing though, and this is what changes things up a little bit. Hey, listen, you know what? It was the draw of the card is how it worked out. What I like about it though is that as we were walking around, Amber and I were both hearing like, well, that's the highest we've gotten so far. There was a sense of motivation. There was a sense of like, oh, I gotta be competitive, but I also try to beat someone else. But like, I know I could probably get better than this. So now, what we'll do is you're gonna go back to your original spots. Thank you for engaging in this activity for us. And we're gonna get into what the actual activity, what this looks like on a day-to-day basis. Now that you have some anchor in your mind about what this looks like.
I don't know if we came in second.
Now, if you're interested in what the highest score is, I am happy to have a conversation with you afterwards about what that highest score possible is. But we are quite far away from the highest possible score at this moment. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that because there's lots of different ways of going through and doing this.
Okay, so we want you to take just another moment here to return to your jot, take another sticky note if you need to, and reflect on how what you just experienced just now is different than your math experience growing up. Are you able to like pin? I'm on the Google Meet right now sharing, but I was big before, now it's small. I think that should do it. Yep, it's a little slow. There it goes. There we go. Great. Okay, awesome. Would anyone like to share some of the differences that you experienced between now and what it was like for you when you were in school? Yes, go ahead.
So when I went to school, they only invented numbers up to 100. So no, seriously, right, we had an abacus. It was pretty much memorize your times tables, formulas with no context, like why am I learning this? But mostly I think my takeaway was I just felt like I couldn't achieve, like math was just not in the cards for me. I do complicated math every day at work now. This one, it was fun, it was collaborative, and it was strategic. As you started to kind of do it, you started to build a strategy. So it gave you motivation, it gave you a goal to achieve. It wasn't just trying to get the right answer, it was trying to win. And I think that
Yes.
appealed to a lot of us.
Yes, yes.
I think it was confidence builder as you went along, more than the involvement, because we all do things. I mean, I'm a product of the '70s, and it was not interactive back then, it was structured. And I think that the value of feedback wasn't weighted into the equation. But I think the kids today, between the calculators and the cell phones, they have much more exposure to automation that you have to have interaction. If you don't have that interaction, then confidence doesn't.
Absolutely. It's like that feedback loop, you know, in video games, except not a video game. They're like, oh my God, I got it right. I have to get it again. And they crave it. Okay, so we're going to tell you a little bit more about kind of the why behind the Building Thinking Classrooms framework and just what it looks like day to day in our classrooms.
All right, so what we're talking about is the Building Thinking Classrooms model. It is this bright orange textbook that is very famous in education, like math education right now, from Peter Liljedahl, I believe is how you pronounce it. And what Amber has for you is it's an executive summary where it goes through a little bit more of the let's say a snapshot of all the detailed information that is in this text, so that you can have it as a reference for yourself. And it is linked in our presentation that we'll make available to Dr. Brummett to be able to share with the board. But here are the big things. The first piece is it's an instructional framework that's trying to focus more on the thinking versus studenting. Peter in the book talks a lot about these studenting skills like slacking or stalling, faking, the biggest one being mimicking, just doing what like the teacher tells me to do as a mimicking, but not actually understanding what's happening, versus thinking. So there are visible structural changes within a math classroom. There are instructional changes. The first of them being the first two here being what you experienced tonight. A vertical non-permanent surface, which is a very fancy way of saying usually a whiteboard surface of some kind. It could be a chalkboard surface, but some type of non-permanent surface. So even using like a chart paper is not ideal. It needs to be non-permanent. And the second piece is that random grouping, that you don't know who's going to be in your group and what expertise those people are going to be bringing to you, because everyone has some expertise to be able to bring to the table, and having that group be part of it. The third part is a defronting of the classroom. The idea that I don't refer to the front of the classroom I don't refer to where my projector is as the front of a room, because usually that sends the message that this is important, you should look here. The idea is that wherever you are doing work is important, you should look there. So even changing the language around, oh, look at the front of the room, instead of saying that, now I'm saying things like find the projector and look at what's on the projector. Those little moves about defronting what is the priority. And the last piece is what you experienced tonight is the thinking task. These are broken into two categories, non-curricular, which is what you did here. This is just a number puzzle. Right? But we also have these where they are curricular based. So students are engaging with 7th grade in our example, but teachers in the math department are experimenting this. Teachers in 5th grade through 8th grade at the middle school right now, all grades are having some exposure into it right now, as well as a few teachers at the high school. So we are using some of these thinking tasks to access curriculum as well.
Okay, so in education, there's usually a lot of new trends and things that circle through year after year, but this truly is something that positions so well with our district mission and vision for equity for all students and being culturally responsive educators and putting in practice culturally responsive pedagogy. This process of students working at whiteboards and them having their work be visible, it really positions everyone as doers of mathematics. There is no I'm a math person, I'm not a math person. Like, no, you just did math on the board and everyone saw it and I put a star next to your work, you're a mathematician. So it really does build students' confidence, like some of you shared, that they see themselves as a person who does math. I am a mathematician. The process of showcasing their work, we have less than a 40-minute class period with you all tonight, but in a regular class period, we would spend some time summarizing what we just did with students and referencing it as, oh, look at Timmy's work, look at Joanne's work, look at their strategy, and it really showcases them and again builds their confidence and says, yeah, you had that idea, you came up with that, build your confidence. So really showcasing and building their identity as a person who does math. I heard some people saying that this was more kind of collectivist and collaborative, and your experience growing up was probably much more individualistic. So this really does build on that idea of collectivism and everyone working all together. The process of us highlighting student work and everyone seeing, yeah, we are better when we work together. I'm not just on my own. I have support from my classmates and I have things to offer my classmates. At Kellogg, and I think in a couple of our other schools throughout the district, we have been doing a book study on Zaretta Hammond's text, Culture Responsive Pedagogy and the Brain. And really the focus on this is not just a silver bullet couple of toolkit things of how do you become a more culture responsive educator, but how do we leverage brain science to actually build students to be more independent learners and get them from being reliant on the teacher to be able to learn things on their own. And some of the 4 main components of these things that we've learned about in the brain science in this book align so perfectly with building thinking classrooms. The 4 things that we most recently kind of summarized at the very end of our book study: ignite, chunk, chew, and review. Those are ways to make sure that students are learning the new content, having time to practice it, chew on it, and make sure that they don't forget it. And that lines up really perfectly with launching the BTC task, doing the task, summarizing their learning, and having time to check their understanding and make sure that they're getting it. So this not only is great just for their identity, but it also connects really well to brain science and brain development.
And to go along with that, Amber and I in 2021 participated in a professional learning series called Dismantling Racism in the Math Classroom, which was at the time was really hard for us to sort of wrap our brain around. That's where we were developing, within our equity journey. But we're connecting back to a lot of this and how this connects to the idea of looking at how can we support all learners within a classroom, especially around, when we talk about like a white culture and how that plays into it. So one of the big parts of that we learned in there was around the one way to solve a problem versus that divergent thinking around multiple representations and perspectives. Lots of you, when you were doing the activity today, took different approaches to how you were solving it, and there was no right way of doing it. You just took a different approach, and you still were able to get somewhere within that journey. And the second piece is around the idea of perfectionism. Well, that's why with the whiteboard, the non-permanent surface is great, because unlike a chalkboard where will see the chalk erasings, a whiteboard, when you erase it, it goes away. You cannot tell where the whiteboard erasings are within reason, but you understand, like, it's much more of that non-permanent. It's fostering that sense of we are looking for continuous improvement. It is not this is the right way and I have to have some level of mark showing that I didn't do it right the first time. It removes that a little bit within this. And one of the other pieces that I wanted to connect to here is around the what type of curricular tasks that we do. There are curricular tasks that we do, and one of the types is called a thin slicing task, where we basically work our way up to small little steps of slightly more challenging, slightly more challenging, slightly more challenging. So we keep kids always engaged within that. So there's enough of a push to push their brain, but not so far they're going to become frustrated, but not so little that they become bored. So that idea of we're building an independent learner because we are providing them that just what they need in that moment.
Yes.
Sure.
Not the exact term you used, but you write something referring to like a white race in the, can you go back to that term for me?
It was white culture.
Okay, can you give me a definition of what you mean by that? Because I don't understand that.
So within white culture, there are, oh, sorry, thank you. So within white culture, there are attributes of what makes white culture, and two of the aspects of a white culture within within the white race is, two of the elements are perfectionism as well as, the one right way of doing something. So the idea around it being a singular way of solving a problem, that is, we want to foster kids to be able to try and represent maybe with the way they're wrapping their brain around it. So we do that. And then the other piece around the perfectionism is that it's not just, I have to be perfect all the time. It's the idea that I can be wrong and trial and error and make mistakes, and I can keep going through that.
So, I get getting kids to try to get involved and do stuff, but why do we have to make it a racist statement to do that? And why is it gonna be racist? I don't get that, because you are. You're making it a racist statement, in my opinion. And it doesn't foster what I would like to see fostered in it. I like some of the concepts here, but I don't like the language that fosters racism, because that's what I think you're doing.
Could I chime in?
Absolutely.
So when we went through this dismantling racism in the mathematics classroom, one of the first things that we had to accept is, I don't think that I do racist things. Like, I don't think the practices that I have in place are harming my students of color. But the reality of us being in, a system is, I am one wheel in that system. And there are things that we did in our classrooms that we did not realize our students that were harmful for our non-white students. So let me think of some specific examples. I think it's hard to pick a specific example because over the past year, in our study of trying to access more of our students and provide for more of our students, we realize it's really just woven into the fabric of everything that we do. Some specific examples I can think of are really restrictive policies around late work. That's not necessarily specific to math, but that is a concrete policy of something that has, white students have flourished in that, and our students of color have been hurt by some of those policies.
Why don't we just work towards continuing to do what we're doing and integrating, and stop using race? Stop calling white black, because that's divisive. I don't care what anybody says, it's divisive. And now you're bringing color, you're bringing the attention to the color of our skin. It's got nothing to do with what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think the last thing that I want to say about that is, I think it for me as a white educator, that I used to feel the same way.
Why do you have to be a white educator?
I could actually chime in, Ms. Bidwell.
Sure, yeah.
And we'll be talking about this in my presentation momentarily, but we have,
I'm trying to put you.
no, and
and
you
this is an
always ask
important
very good
conversation.
questions. What is a big challenge for us here in Newington is our equity gap. So we have kids in our district, Hispanic students specifically, who achieve at a lower rate than our white students. And by practicing various things and learning more about how that comes up in a classroom is what we're trying to accomplish. One of those things is to be aware of some of our characteristics from our background is to be perfectionistic or to want to do one way. But when we have kids from other cultures, they have a different way of going about it. So we have learned through research and best practices that we've got to be aware of these things. And I'll get into that momentarily during my presentation, but what you're hearing from Ms. Bedwell and Mr. Bruno tonight are really models of what we want to try to do, because we do have an achievement gap and we're trying to close it. And I'll show you that we're making a little bit of progress, but we've got a way to go. And this is one of our opportunities to give more kids an opportunity to shine in math. And I will tell you, I've been in their classrooms, but Mr. Bruno's done PD as well as I've been in his classroom, and it really does level the playing field. It gives more kids an opportunity to participate. So I believe that is why we do point out race in these discussions. And hopefully over time, it'll make more sense.
Well, so I understand what you're saying, and I understand there's gaps, and I think there's ways to help us all to close the gaps. Little children
don't see skin color. We're bringing it to them, to their attention. We're doing a disservice in my opinion. When you start telling kids because they're white, there's some kind of either privilege or they should be ashamed. Why do we do that to children? Don't do that. When children are playing, they don't do that. Why are us adults inserting that into their education and inserting into that their what's the word I'm looking for? But how they feel about themselves. I think that's wrong.
Well, we could probably take this conversation offline to kind of go much more in depth, which would, our teachers have been through a lot of training over the past several years.
Training is towards racism. It's towards racism. It's
So
white racism.
I think, that would be
Well, we can
your
take it
opinion, but I
offline.
think we can move on, and I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you offline so we can kind of move forward with our presentation tonight.
Okay, thank you so much. So one of the things that was mentioned just now is the gap in how our students perform. And I think what I'm about to show you is my personal data for my students over this school year. What you see on the screen right now is a little bit jarring. I know some of these numbers are a bit small here. This is my all students growth from the beginning of the school year to the winter. You will see that is a -8 overall. That is supposed to be going up over the school year. So there are a number of math teachers in our department that as we switch to a new platform for seeing how our students are performing, at the halfway mark, we were floored that they were making minimal progress or in some cases regressing. This is also the time in the year where I was giving traditional instruction. I had not yet implemented the Building Thinking Classrooms model at this point in the school year. This is up until December 22nd. So I believe that was our last day right before the winter vacation. That week, and then when we came back in January is when I began to fully implement the Building Classrooms model. And I have been using this since that last week of December. And this is my data for the second half of the year since implementing that model. So they went from negative growth down to -8 to +65. So the numbers do not lie. This has had a massive impact on how my students perform, how they are retaining their skills, and of course their confidence, but that's pretty jarring positive data.
And just to give some context around it, the screen that we're using here, every 10 points is equivalent to roughly a month's worth of growth, if you think of it in that regard. So we would expect a student to be growing from the fall to the spring, roughly 100 points. That's roughly what that would the equivalent of that would be. I have started this from the first day of school. This is and what we're going to show you is the potential for what this could do. So from the start of the year until now, from when we did this, my students' average growth has been over 200 points. So we're talking roughly equivalent of around 2 years worth of improvement from the start of the year to now. Now, this is the population of students I have at this exact moment. So this is one piece of information, right? But the idea that we are seeing as our Smart Balance results are starting to come in and some of that information, we're seeing this same type of improvement, this plus 222 point averaging improvement is rolling over into some of the Smart Balance results as well. So we don't have that exact information out entirely yet. It's not finalized yet, but the idea is that we are seeing the potential of this, that we can start seeing where gaps can be starting to be closed. We can start seeing where students are improving upon things, and it's making it much more meaningful for our students. So we're seeing, this is like the proof is in the results here, and we're seeing the results are showing that significant improvement, that significant growth. Yes. So this is this is called the IXL snapshot. It's something housed within the IXL platform, the IXL.com platform. Students take this assessment fall, winter, and spring. And it takes them about maybe 30 to 45 minutes to complete. And it gives them questions on algebra, numbers and operations, fractions, geometry, statistics, and measurement. And it gives them a score for overall, and then each of those sub scores comes into it as well. So what you're seeing here, that plus 222, is the overall improvement on their overall score. So my students on average, according to, and as of the time that I took this screenshot, their average improvement was around 220 points. So equivalent to 2 years and 2 months of improvement from the fall to the spring.
So this could be translated to like the
Absolutely. So I can give it an anecdotal example. So Michelle Kellogg and I were looking at some of the data from my Smarter Balance results. And roughly speaking, if we calculated it correctly, it was something like right now, those same students that have a plus 222, they grew on their Smarter Balance score around 160% of what they were supposed to, which means they met the average improvement. So it's all of the growth that they made plus around 60% more on top of that. So again, we're seeing multiple data points that are aligning here to show that that growth is not just within this assessment, it's in multiple assessment arenas. Yeah.
Any other questions for?
Just a quick question. I mean, the data is remarkable. It's not, I mean, it's beyond what I expected to see. Are we sharing that data with other districts, or is this model implemented in other places, and are they seeing the same results?
So I know that many other districts are looking at this right now. We don't have a direct partnership with another district that's also implementing it. However, our department leadership is in communication with other districts that are implementing it as well. And we're looking at what are you doing that's being successful? What are you doing that really didn't work as well as you want to? We also have both of our instructional coaches at Wallace and at Kellogg have gone to different trainings around this, how to support teachers as we implement it. As a math department, we're going to be looking at this being part of our department vision over the next year, where we're looking at how we can engage all of our math educators in the process of learning this and varying levels of implementation.
It's across the board. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. And I think it takes into account all different things that are consistent with our mission, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, I think that's just absolutely incredible. Well done.
Thank you. Yes.
A couple of comments and then a question. I work in corporate learning and development. The approach you're working are things that we've been implementing and pushing through, not teaching to, but learning with, is even for adult learners important. Using the whole space, appealing to kinesthetic learners, changing the pace, changing the modality to keep them engaged. It's really hard to do with adults. It's even harder to do with kids. I appreciate your efforts to make sure that it is culturally inclusive. I really feel like that is a big strength with this program. Getting to my question, so fifth graders, Martin Kellogg, those are really the first group, the cohort group that came through the pandemic, and they've systemically since that time been behind in math skills. How do you see this trying to close that gap a little?
So what we're seeing is there's two parts to that. One is we're using this to try to open up, as the activity you did, there's oftentimes these curricular tasks or non-curricular tasks have what we call a low floor, high ceiling. The idea that we have lots of entry points for all of us. So even as adult learners who may have not done multiplication in a very long time, you all had an access point into starting our activity today. So that's an important piece of it. So looking for that for students who may have those larger gaps because of learning loss for whatever the reason is, whether it's for attendance or if it's because of those couple of years, whatever the reasoning is. That's one piece that goes into it. The second piece is I know that some of the elementary schools are also starting to look at this model as well. So we're looking at the potential here for this to become an instructional model that is consistent across buildings, across levels, because we're seeing it as an important piece. The text is a K-12 text, but he recently, actually just like last week or 2 weeks ago, came out with a text of resources specifically meant for kindergarten through fifth grade students. And in the following year, I believe he's coming out with a text for the secondary level. So this, some of the strategies might look a little bit different depending on what age of learner you're talking about. But it's absolutely something that is being looked at and used and explored. As a matter of fact, the papers that I brought for tonight were being borrowed from a fifth grade teacher at Martin Kellogg. So it's being used across multiple teachers in multiple settings.
Thank you. I think that was a great explanation, and I can't wait to see it evolve even further. I think you are onto something that's a bit of a jumpstart that we need for learners who are behind for any reason, like you said. But I think in particular, in a way to allow kids who just think they're not math kids, or this can be applied across multiple disciplines, to say, well, you don't have to put yourself into a box. I think when I grew up, math was follow the steps. And if you make a step, you fail. This is an approach that encourages them, that says, jump, go, make that critical thinking leap and apply and learn and be free to make mistakes and learn from them. Non-permanent. Like all my math mistakes are permanent. So this is great. Thank you very much.
Ms. Carr?
Thank you for the presentation, and I'm glad to see we're improving. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the last chart correctly. So there are 13,841, if I'm reading that right, skills practice, but less than 50% are being mastered?
So the way it works is this, in this chart, IXL, the way IXL does it is there's, I would probably say 150 skills per grade level. It's something to that effect. So this is showing any skills that a student may have practiced over the course of the year. Now, the skills proficient versus mastered, a mastered means that they get a score within this of a 100%. Or 100, excuse me, not a percentage. It's a 100, which means that they have to do, usually it's like maybe 10 to 15 questions, and then they have to get 10 right in a row, and then it gives them that mastered mark. The proficient is what's probably more important on this, is because that's going to be students who are getting to around like an 80 or a 90 on this. So they might not get through that 10, sometimes a very challenging stretch to get. Yeah, it's called a challenge zone. And it's sometimes really difficult to get 10 questions in a row right on the first try. So that level is probably the more important of those two. Now, all students are not, this is showing all students for all year. So that's not saying that every student completed that many. That's saying a student number one might have completed, 100 different skills. And then this one might have done 120. That's going to be the collective of all of those put together, of all of my 80 odd students and all of the skills that each of them had done throughout the year.
And I think it's also important to note that on the IXL platform, the number that you see on the right is the assessment that they take, and that represents their growth. That little mountain on the left includes any of the skills that we may assign for practice throughout the school year as homework or in class. So that also contributes to their overall score at the end of the year, but some of those skills are not necessarily what they did on that assessment. That's just what they did for homework or didn't do for homework that night, because not everyone always does their homework, but that includes what they do in class as well as the actual assessments.
Did you want to add something?
No, I just wanted to comment and in closing, thank our presenters. The Martin Kellogg has been on the cutting edge of building thinking classrooms, and now they have shared it with other schools. Ms. Kellogg has also been instrumental in that as our math coordinator. And we have also had students give us feedback on this at a recent rounds visit at our other middle school, and they were extraordinarily positive about how it's helped them move along. And there's a lot of things we need to tweak about it, but truth be told, it has had a positive impact. And I really want to thank our presenters from Kellogg tonight for kind of leading the way on this. And look forward to seeing these continued results on behalf of all of our kids. So thank you very much for your time and work on this.
I actually have a question too. And I'm not being funny, but like you mentioned the whiteboards or the non-permanent surfaces. So do our classrooms, or like how have you gotten around that? Like, do you have the materials that you need? And if we're expanding it to other grade levels, is there like what does that look like, and what might you need from the board for those materials?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have in our classrooms been able to source that either by some pre-existing things that we had in the classroom, as well as some, whether I'm not sure if it was extra budget money we had lying around, or someone in the building saying, hey, I have a whiteboard that I don't use. Do you want it? So I think we do have plans in place, and maybe you or Michelle can talk a little bit more about kind of what the budget needs are. I think the two of us between our classrooms have been able to source that for this school year as we piloted it. But as we start to roll this out throughout more of the entire math department, there will need to be more physical materials.
Yeah, just so when I started this journey back in the summer with Michelle, we looked at what would we need, and she sent out an all-call email to what whiteboards do we have available in the space right now that are existing? And we were able to retrofit my room, and through the State Department's Donor Choose program, we were able to get quite a few whiteboards that way to source other classrooms already. That will be a budgetary thing. I'm not sure if Michelle has it within her budget already. I believe she does. She's nodding yes. So those are things that would be to help support that in purchasing those items for other places. The ones that we have that we use here, these paper ones, these are really great temporary solutions in the meantime, because as we all know, children are somehow extremely destructive with things. Like they don't easily, like they figure out how to break something just in something you would think is indestructible. So oftentimes we have to be really careful with those materials. They work for a temporary purpose, but that more permanent idea of like the whiteboard easel or like the whiteboard walls or things like that, those are much more permanent solutions. And those are gonna be things that would be helpful, especially when you're looking at implementing it from elementary schools, middle school, as well as high school.
It's maybe something we should look into the John Wallace renovation, right?
I
Mr.
wasn't gonna
Halloran
say
and
it.
Mr.
I mean,
Newton.
I wasn't gonna say. I mean, yeah. Since you guys said it, I mean, I will absolutely say. And I don't want to like try to put a plug on that. But my wife, who happens to teach at Walls, would be very happy to have walls of whiteboards to be able to do this, rather than the ones that we sort of have propped up on easels and things like that. But yes,
Yeah, tomorrow night.
very timely then. Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Haller and Mr. Newton, as our representatives, please make sure we get walls of whiteboard. Yeah, and just one other, just anecdotal, I was looking forward to this presentation, and I have an 8th grader at Martin Kellogg, and I was asking her if she did it. And the one thing that she said was like weird was the randomized groups, which I actually kind of like, because then you're not always working with the same students and you're getting exposure to others, and other students who may not be, maybe performing not as well, have an opportunity to work with students who are. So I think that I'm assuming that's a part of the program. So that was something that she had mentioned to me, but overall she said that it was fun and enjoyable. So, but I thank you for the presentation. I think it was our first interactive board presentation. So good job there. It was very fun. And yeah, I think you did a great job, and tying together, this program, but also what you've learned in other PD days and other book clubs that encompass our whole, our mission, vision, everything. So thank you for bringing it all to math. And we look forward to seeing very high benchmarks, testing results.
Yep.
And yes, lots of growth. So thank you so much for being here. So our next item on the agenda under new business is our healthy food certification. Dr. Remetz, pulling it up.
Thank you very much. And I am going to ask Dana Markovics, who I believe is online, to comment on the healthy food certification. And I'll post it online as well around the board.
Okay, good
So-
evening. Each year, the board just needs to certify whether or not food sold to students outside the school lunch program meets the Connecticut nutrition standards. We've participated in this program for the past 16 years, and there's been no negative impact on outside groups. So in addition to the board certifying whether or not we'll meet these standards, they also have the opportunity to allow exemptions for the sale of food to students. In order for that to happen, these items need to be sold at an event on the weekend or after school. It cannot be sold from vending machines or from any culinary arts programs. And the district, or actually the food service program, receives additional funding, and it's approximately $34,000 a year by participating. And again, we participated the past 16 years with no negative impacts with other groups within the organization.
Yes, Mr. Newton.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
A question, is there any cost involved in this program?
No, there is no cost.
Okay. Thank you.
We just receive additional funding.
Which is very important. So it's two, is it two?
Two different motions.
Okay, so
And I
Um,
apologize for how long it is. It's just the required language that the state requires.
no worries. Okay, so the first paragraph is the motion that we need read, if anyone would be willing to do that. Yes, please.
On vote 1 for participation, healthy food option of HFC pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 10-215F, the Newington Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Do a vote, please.
Beatrice,
Yes.
Andy Carr,
Yes.
Tom Halloran,
Yes.
Anthony Neely,
Yes.
Timothy Newton,
Yes.
Amy Parati.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
And the second one? Anyone can do it.
Vote 2 for food and beverage exemptions. The Newington Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in section 1022 LQ of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. Number 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. Number 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food and beverage sales.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Mary Beatrice,
Yes.
Brittany Carr,
Yes.
Tom Halloran,
Yes.
Anthony Neely,
Yes.
Timothy Newton,
Yes.
Parati.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. All right. The next item is discussion and possible action for breakfast price increases.
So we are in the process of expanding our breakfast program district-wide. This year, we added 3 out of our 4 elementary schools. We've always had it at the middle and high for quite some time. However, in the course of doing that, there are some expenses that have kind of caused us to think about a price increase. But I'm going to ask Ms. Markovich to explain that in a little more detail.
Okay. So the district was able to offer universal free breakfasts for all middle and high school students due to additional state funding. The district received 40 cents for every paid breakfast that we claimed in additional funding. Unfortunately, universal free breakfast did not make it into the governor's budget for next school year. So therefore, Newington is going to be seeing less funding. With paper, food costs, and salary benefits increasing yearly. And also, as like Dr. Brummett said, the desire to provide breakfast at the elementary schools. The program cannot maintain the current pricing structure and meet our operational expenses without increasing revenue. So pre-pandemic pricing for Newington, we were actually 10 cents less than what Wethersfield charged. We're 50 cents less than what Berlin charged and 75 cents less than Rocky Hill. Although the neighboring districts have not indicated whether or not they're going to be increasing breakfast, they most likely will need to make some kind of adjustment just based upon the decrease in state funding that we're going to see without universal free and just yearly expenses that increase yearly. We certainly do not look forward to increasing breakfast prices, certainly when there are families who are still struggling. We've not increased prices in 9 years. Students have been receiving free breakfast for over 4 years. But it is strongly recommended that the board increase the price for breakfast by 50 cents. It would increase from $1.50 to $2 per breakfast. It is estimated that we will probably generate an additional $18,000 in revenue by increasing it by 50 cents. And this certainly is going to help us maintain our current breakfast offerings. And we will not have to then rely on the lunch program to supplement the breakfast program. And we certainly do not want to be operating at a loss. And like I said, we want to continue the program, the offerings that we have, and we're looking to expand it to the elementary schools. An increase in school breakfast would allow us to maintain the current lunch pricing that was increased this year. I know I presented last year and we increased it for this year, and there was a thought that we may need to increase it for next year, but I don't see that as being necessary. I also would like to just point out that although universal free breakfast was not included in the governor's budget, it is included for reduced eligible students to receive 1 free breakfast and 1 free lunch per day. So we will be receiving that additional state funding for them to be able to get free meals every day. Are there any questions regarding this proposal of a 50-cent increase?
Tony, go ahead.
Sorry, Dana, could you tell me again, why 50 cents? Why not 25? Or where did 50 cents, I guess, where did that number come from? And I understand we're gonna have an additional 18,000, is it? But,
Wait, the additional 18,000 is estimated if we were to increase breakfast by 50 cents.
50
This
cents.
past year, we did receive 40 cents additional funding. And then each year, funding does, each year our operating costs do go up every single year. So looking at, this year we were getting 40 cents. My paper costs, food costs are all going up next year, plus salaries. That's where I kind of came up with like 50, because we were currently getting 40 this school year. And then the past years before that, we were getting additional state funding as well, and federal funding because it was universal free. So I guess the illustration that I had given in the memo, this school year we receive, I think it's $2.28 in federal reimbursement for every free breakfast that we serve. So if we were charging the $1.50, we do get some federal reimbursement, which would be 38 cents, which would bring up to $1.88, which is still far below the 2.28 that we get for free. So even with it going up to $2, it's still less than the 2.28 that we get for free meals. And that goes up every single year, that funding. So we're trying to kind of, close the gap between what we get for, free students and what are paid students. So in essence, in some ways, free students do kind of supplement what paid students pay, just with the increase in that funding.
Thank you. Are you confident? You said that 18,000 would offset, there wouldn't be an increase in the lunch price. Are you confident of that?
It's the best guess because anytime you do increase price, and we saw this year with lunch prices, participation does fall. So this year with lunch, we did lose about 20%. So when I came up with that 18,000, I based it on 20 less breakfast than what we're doing this year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for Dana? I do just want to mention too. So like you said, this year we were getting free breakfast for everyone for the middle and high school where we had the programs, and then it wasn't in the state budget. So I reached out to Gary Turco, who is a proponent of universal free breakfast and lunches actually. And he did mention that he is going to work with the state to get more funding. So if anyone is listening and is interested in that, reach out to your representative, if it's Gary or Kate, because they do want to work on that next year. And I do also want to, so I had a parent reach out from Chafee where there's no breakfast offered. Is there, and I know we're going to meet a little bit later, but
Yes.
Is that something that I guess just what's the reasoning for that?
The reasoning just because I think the timing of it all and administration is going to be changing for next year. I know that Jim and we have discussed that, yes, we are looking to expand it to Ruth Chafee next year. I think it was just the timing was just not ideal for that school at that time. But the goal is to offer breakfast there as well.
Okay, yeah. So we definitely want students to be fed and ready to learn, because I think breakfast is super important. And then just to reiterate what you said, that we're getting federal funding for the free students, and then the state is funding the reduced. So we're getting our
Correct.
free and reduced eligible students are still getting free breakfast, even if we raise the price here. So it's just the paying students that that do participate in the breakfast program, they will have to still pay because the state is, or they will have to pay next year because the state is not covering that like they are this year. So are there any questions or concerns with the increase of 50 cents? Do we have anyone that wants to read the motion? Mr. Halloran.
Making a motion that the Board of Education will increase the cost of food for full paid school breakfast by 50 cents for the 2024-2025 school year.
I have a motion second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we're voting to increase this price of paid breakfast by 50 cents.
With extreme heavy heart, yes.
Brittany Carr,
Yes.
Sean Halloran,
Yes.
Anthony Mailing,
Yes.
Timothy Newton,
Yes.
Amy Paradi.
Yes,
Motion passed unanimously.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. All right, number 3. Dr.
Thank you
Bowen.
very much. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite, I believe Ms. Davis is online. Oh, Mr. Faris is going to cover this. So I believe your memo is linked there. I'll turn it over to you. There has been a state requirement that we update our teacher evaluation process and our leadership evaluation process. And Mr. Faris is going to provide the board with an overview of that.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for mentioning Mrs. Davis. I would like to open by saying Mrs. Davis, who is our Director of Talent Management out of our office, has facilitated the redesign and development of these two plans with the committee. So I just wanted to thank her and her efforts for that. She couldn't be with us this evening, but I did want to share that annually the board is responsible for reviewing the plans and passing them every year. That's part of legislation. Difference this year is that the plans, through legislation, some things had changed for some of the requirements of the plans. So you're going to see a few of those changes this evening. I know both of the plans were linked in the packet that was sent to you electronically. But the primary goal of the educator evaluation support system is really to strengthen individual and collaborative practice to increase student learning, growth, and achievement. So very similar to what you saw earlier in the mathematics presentation that was just shared. An administrator and a teacher would get together and they would design collaboratively a goal around what practices might be changing in the classroom to be able to support student growth and achievement, but equally, what is going to support their growth to be able to support student growth and achievement. So the new plans really put an emphasis, on that collaborative work together between an administrator and a teacher, focused on educator practice that aligns to our district mission and goals to be able to support growth and improvement. I wanted to share that the name of the committees that Mrs. Davis facilitated to support the development of these plans is called PDEC. That's Professional Development and Evaluation Committee. So that's the term that it goes by. And we were fortunate to have 11 core committee members, 7 of which were teachers, including the president of the Teachers Association and a few other elected officials on that committee, as well as 4 administrators, and then a subgroup of an additional 8 educators who did work that was kind of a branch off of the core committee work. So we really had high participation, almost 20 individuals that were helping out to design these plans. Some of the changes of the plan really included that in the previous plans that the board would look at, you would see whenever observations or end of year summative evaluations occurred, that there would be a teacher rating associated with those. These plans take out that rating. So no longer will educators be rated on their performance. More importantly will be the conversations, the feedback, the evidence of growth that has occurred throughout the year between the administrator and the educator. And another change to it is that the system is set up in 3 tiers. So tier 1 is what all educators in a school might be learning that would align to their school improvement plans, the district improvement efforts, and what they would be doing in that tier 1 setting through their professional learning community meetings when they meet as grade levels or content area teams, or when they meet for our early release Tuesday professional learning sessions or our before school professional learnings. And then there would be opportunities if they needed to go deeper into that, a tier 2 professional learning opportunity, which would mean that I might do a coaching cycle with one of our instructional coaches so that I can kind of work collaboratively with that person in a one-on-one situation. So I can really dig deeper into some learning that I want to acquire and some knowledge and opportunities that I might have. I might do that also with someone maybe out of the educational technology department if I'm really trying to dig into there. So whomever it is and whatever you're trying to learn and learn more from, it might become a little more personalized and individualized in the tier 2 setting. And then the tier 3 setting as well would get even deeper and more frequently. The plan does still contain a constructive support plan if you're not meeting with success. So there's an opportunity to continue to learn and grow in that way. But the other elements of the plan are very similar to the past. There's still a goal-setting meeting with your evaluator at the beginning of the year. You have a mid-year check-in, and then an end-of-the-year summative evaluation at the end of the year to kind of look at all the evidence of practice, and then observations throughout that time. It is broken up into 2 cohorts, meaning if you are new to the Newington Public Schools or you are new to teaching for your first time ever, you're in cohort 1. So you would have more frequent opportunities to meet with your evaluator, to go over your practice, how things are going in the classroom, more observations, more conversations, more feedback. And then once you get through cohort 1, when you're no longer a brand new teacher to education or to the Newington Public Schools, you would then be in cohort 2, where the model is for those more veteran teachers, those more tenured teachers. And the same things occur, just a little less frequently. So we give a little more attention to our newer educators, which is, again, very similar to the previous plans, just framed a little bit differently. Other than that, those are kind of the major elements of the plan. The very last thing that is a change as well would be the rubric that we use. So previously we used what was called the Danielson framework. That was the name of the rubric that showed the standards that educators needed to meet. So these would be the standards of performance in your classroom. So when someone comes in to observe you in the classroom, what standards, what things are we looking for? Well, that rubric would tell us those, right? And so now that rubric has been updated and revised to include a lot of the practices that we have in our vision and mission, which is excellent. So it's a great alignment. So the committee adopted that new rubric. That's also in the packet, your online packet that you have. And you can kind of take a look at some of the updates to that rubric. And if you ever are interested in the old one, we can send that to you for a comparison. But it follows the same concepts and skills and knowledge and application of teaching practice with a lot of nuances around a lot of the equity work and cultural responsiveness that we focus on. So with all that being said, I can just share that the administrator evaluation plan mirrors this very closely as far as how it is set up and designed. The only difference would be is that we use an administrator rubric opposed to a teacher rubric. So we use the Connecticut standards for school administrators, and that's what they adopted for that. So with all that being said, I'd entertain an opportunity for any questions or discussions before it goes to vote.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Tony. Put your mic on.
I have great respect for Steve. What do you think about it?
I'm sorry?
What do you think about the program? I mean,
The evaluation
Yeah.
system? I think it has wonderful improvements to it from the previous versions. I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to work on the beginning one in 2012 and 13 when the state mandated that we had to really revamp the whole system in the consecutive ones thereafter, which I just think, unfortunately, the way it was rolled out at the time and had to be implemented so quickly from the State Department of Education. Maybe the way that we had a chance to work that into the system wasn't as positive as it could have been. I feel like this one, we had a lot of time to work with the committee and really bring a lot of positive elements to the process, which hopefully will help us improve our ability to use it more effectively than the previous versions. So I do believe that this is a better version of an evaluation system. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. Ms. Carr.
When you get a chance, can you send us the old rubrics just so we can see?
Absolutely, yes. And they're actually online right now, so I'll just send you to the links to where they are currently off our website. So we do publish everything. We publish all our contracts, all our evaluation systems, everything we keep online. So I will send the board the links to where those are so you could review some of the changes.
Tony asked my question of how you felt about it personally. So if you're good with it, then I would entertain a motion. Go ahead.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay.
Mary Beatrice,
Yes.
Brittany Carr,
Yes.
Sean Halloran,
Yes.
Anthony Manning,
Yes.
Timothy Newton.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. And I do want to thank the committee that revised this and put it together. I think it was probably a lot of work. But I think it'll definitely help our teachers and educators better perform their jobs to teach our students. Thank you. Okay, we have a report for our computer purchase program.
Yes, I will turn that over to Mr. Jacomowitz. It's an annual program that we just alert the board to.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This program, as you can see from the chart, started in the mid-1990s at the time where a rather primitive computer was going for about $4,000 each, plus the cost of any peripherals if you needed a mouse or you needed a printer to go along with it. So there was really significant out-of-pocket investments for our staff members to be acquiring computing power to facilitate their success at work. You know, obviously through the better part of 30 years, the cost of equipment has come down substantially, as well as its computing power has risen dramatically, where, you know, it's a much more achievable buy on behalf of all the teachers, and it is part of their the fabric of the everyday job today. So, you know, even though it's not the significant source of supplemental funding for our staff, there still are individuals on the staff who do try to, you know, self-improve, have special needs and desires for more higher horsepower equipment than what we provide for them as part of the daily responsibilities for the teaching. So, you know, we have maintained this program for, I think we're probably somewhere around 500 individual loans over the years, where, you know, the board has always gotten paid back. It's required to be paid back within the school year that it's taken out. So if a teacher comes to us in September that says, I'd like to buy a computer, it's going to be $1,500 or whatever it is. You know, they show us the receipt that they bought it. We would cut them a check at that point, and then they have till their last paycheck in June to pay it back of that fiscal cycle. Cannot go over into the following year. And we've had no defaults on the program over the years, so it's been very satisfactory. And as I just said, like if you take a loan out in September, paid in June. Take that loan out right now on May 30th, still has to be paid by June 30th. So it's a restricted program that everybody recognizes and understands, and has been nothing but, you know, both goodwill gesture and, you know, supportive of our teachers' professional growth and experiences that they have. So we recommend highly that this program's continued.
Mr. Halloran.
I can see how this program would be very beneficial, especially to first-year teachers who don't actually have a lot of expendable cash, but may need to have technology in post-pandemic world. My question is, I understand that they have to pay it back by June. What happens if that teacher participates in the program, leaves, resigns?
They have to, it gets accelerated and they have to pay immediately.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
There's a written agreement so
Yes.
that, you know, because I'm
Yeah,
worried
there's no-
about messing with wages and the
Right.
laws. But if they've signed an agreement to pay, then the town can recover.
Correct.
Okay. No actions needed, just a report. Thank you, Lou. Next is professional learning.
So I'm actually going to turn the Mike, back over to Mr. Farisi for our annual report on professional learning.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Brummett and Board of Education. So again, annually, we share kind of the overarching themes and outcomes of our professional learning system that's in place right now. And I was actually extremely pleased when putting together this report because it mirrored a lot of what we did last year. And to me, that speaks volumes about what those of you who may have joined our strategic planning heard, that we are very focused and aligned on our vision and mission, and all of our professional learning is aligned to that, outside of any state mandates or maybe things that require updating, such as curriculum or services through special education or nursing. So some of those factors come into what you're going to find in this report when you see the list of items that we did focus on, starting on page 2 and beyond. But what you're going to notice the most is that a lot of the professional learning, again, was around what was spoken to in our mathematics presentation, culturally relevant pedagogy. We know that we've put a lot of effort and focus on social emotional learning and discipline, which those 3 happen to be our 3 pillars that we focus on here in the Newington Public Schools, as well as some of those other requirements of new things that have come out that we need to keep current with to ensure best practice. So for special education, individualized education plans, we have to work with our special education staff on those. Staff wellness, which we know is something that we're constantly working on and making sure that our staff are a good place to be able to support our student success. Curriculum updates that were required in 504 and nursing updates. So what you see in this report as you go through are a list of, first, the professional learning that our staff engaged in that was here in-house. So all of those occurred here in Newington. You'll see a lot of things that are either repeated or sessions 1, 2, 3, and 4, because we engage in the beginning part of the learning and then we carry that throughout the year. So it actually develops some meaning and substance to it, and people can go into classroom practice, come back out, learn more, go in and out. So you'll see a lot of that through the report. And you'll see a lot of consistency and overlap of what schools are doing to ensure that we're all moving in the same direction aligned to our vision and mission. And then later on in the report, around the 4th page, you'll start to see some of what we've used consultants to help support us with. And that's when we may not have the expertise in-house. So we have to contract services outside of Newington to be able to help support us with that. And those are usually through our state education resource groups, our RESCs, that help us with that work. And then thereafter, on pages, I think it's about 5 or 6 and beyond, are conferences that folks go to. So these are opportunities, again, to engage in new learning, again, aligned to our vision and mission and goals, but again, through outside resources and networking opportunities where we get to learn more and bring that back. Folks generally who do go out for learning outside of Newington are required to come back and share that learning, whether it be at their grade level or content professional learning communities, so there's small grade level groups that they get back together with, or in our early Tuesday, release Tuesday professional learning sessions, or even in a bigger all-day session that we might have. So we do ask that of the folks who go out and acquire new learning. And oftentimes they work through us at central office with sharing what that new learning was, and we really get to garner that from them as well and then help spread that throughout the district. So really great opportunities that you've all afforded us through the professional learning budget to have. And I think I'm always most proud of the amount that we see of in-district, in-house professional learning, because that means we're really capitalizing on the skill set of our educators here and our administrators here in district, and really being able to learn and grow from each other. And then bringing in those outside folks to give us that little bit more that we don't yet know, but can acquire and just run with. So I would pause there and see if there are any questions by board members.
Go ahead, Tony.
Steve, I'm going down to the bottom of the thing, the last 4 bullet points. Dismantling systemic racism. You got 4 bullet points on it. I have 2 questions, Wyatt, or 4 bullet points, and can you flesh that out for me? What exactly that is?
I certainly can. So I think one of the presenters this evening was mentioning that. So that would be multiple people went to that, so it wasn't just one person. So that's why there would be multiple bullets on it. That would just represent that multiple people have acquired that knowledge from that conference. So that's part one. Part two of your question?
I want to know, I wish we could go to this training on dismantling systemic racism. Because I don't understand it. I mean, what are they being taught? And I don't know if that's not a simple answer.
So I agree with you. There is nothing simple about the answer to that question. But what I do think is it's an opportunity to just look at the current practices that exist and really examining. So earlier, I think it was mentioned, and I think you said, yeah, I see in the data that there is a wide opportunity gap, right? A difference between, and what we see consistently throughout the data is that it shows that there is a variance in how racial groups perform in our school system. But that's not unique. That's happening throughout the state and it's happening throughout the nation. So we have to examine, why is that? Just why is that? And so we look at what practices might be creating those factors, and then we try to dismantle them. We try to break them apart. So we're really just looking at what are the barriers that are getting in the way? How can we remove those so all kids can be more successful? And what you saw this evening is a wonderful display of removing some barriers. If I could just finish for a second, because what we know, and I think the great question from the beginning was, just write down on the sticky note how you learned math, right?
Right.
And so we did, and I'm sure if we didn't all get to share, but I'm sure if we did, a lot of it was independently, right? Like I know I got a lot of worksheets after a, my teacher kind of showed us what we're supposed to be able to do. There was a worksheet and I had to try to do it with a different problem. And that was a lot of math for me, right? It rarely was what we experienced here. But we know, especially from the results that were shown, that when we break down some barriers and make things more collaborative, more interactive, more engaging, that more people can come together and learn and grow from one another. But we were having practices in place that weren't allowing that. And so what we're trying to do is really examine those practices and dismantle them and break them apart and see how we can reconstruct them to be good for everyone.
I understand what you're saying, and it's a good concept. I don't know why we can't use terms like cultural learning, because it's culture. A lot of it's culture. To me, racism is always, we go back to the melanin in our skin, which I disagree with, because you didn't get to pick the color of your skin. I didn't, and nobody does. It goes back to our ancestors, but I don't want to get into that. The systemic racism that we keep bringing up, it's divisive. And I just think it could be better. The concept I understand and I agree with. It's bringing cultures and learning because I don't know how the Spanish community learns. So yeah, well, let's find out how they learn so we could bring them up to standards and stuff like that. Every time I see this, to me, it triggers. And I know it triggers people. And I don't know why we have to use systemic racism. I don't know. I think you understand how I feel. I don't even know what the answer is. But
I think the like that book, Cultural Relevant Pedagogy, like it's exactly what you're seeing is what they're learning. That this conference happens to be called Dismantling Systemic Racism, but the concept is what we're trying to get across is that everyone's different. Everyone comes from a different background. Everyone learns differently. There's, it's not just race. It's special ed students too. It's everyone.
I'm
so I think
100% with you. So why?
Yeah,
let's change the name.
The words,
Let's
yeah,
change
maybe
the name
we
of
can
the conference.
we can talk about that with Dr. Harder, whoever put on that conference. Don't
We don't always
but-
have the opportunity to change
Right.
the name of the conference titles, but
But within
sometimes the
Newington.
content embedded in the conference is what's valuable and important. And it can lead to divisiveness, maybe. However, the more we can learn, I think the more we can separate that divisiveness and make it so we understand it deeply. And then we can create classrooms and systems and structures where all kids can be successful and all families in this community. That's what we really want. And that's our goal.
I understand that. It's a great goal. I just think that some of the verbiage and some of the adjectives we use they're divisive.
There's definitely been some of the words have been politicized, and I don't agree with it either. I think that what we have to just understand sitting around this table is that it's the concepts and the actions that are coming from it that we're putting forward. It's not the divisiveness, it's what's underneath it. So I think
I agree with that.
yeah.
Yes, you're right.
So I think that, we can continue to have conversations about it. But I think we're all in agreement that it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're learning about how people learn and where they come from in order to ensure that every student, not just minorities or, marginalized students, but everybody is
We're
getting
melting
to
pot.
the-
So that's the whole
Exactly,
idea,
yes.
is to get us to.
Yeah, so I think that's what's happening. The words and, equity, and it's been a word that is, in the media just politicized, and it's not right, because you just have to get below it and understand the vision, mission, what we're trying to accomplish. Every educational system is trying to accomplish is ensuring that the students are successful. Mr. Newton.
I think that the entire issue is not the subject matter. It's at the superintendents and above's level that they've placed labels on things. And I think if they, and not intentionally, but they've placed labels on things and then it gets passed down. And I'm with Tony, half the people I know out there, borders go up when they hear the terms and the way they're using them. And maybe if at the superintendent or above's levels, the state education, they could figure out a way to say it without offending anyone. I think that they're not taking it into it. It's not a comfortable subject. People don't like it, but I think it can be presented better. And it has to start with the top, because you guys are forced by state mandate to go with what they do.
I just want to add something to that, though.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Mandates are not laws. We could say no. Then we don't get some money. I just want to put that out there, because everybody hears that word mandate, and it was a bad word over the past 4 years, and it created a lot of harm. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we do, just to your point, we do have to follow the state mandates. We get funding for, go ahead, Ms. Kraus.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the conversation that we do talk a lot of the things that you were just saying about all of the different groups of students that we look at, special education, ML students, we look at it by gender, and we look at it by race and ethnicity. And we talk a lot about culture, and that's really the primary work we're doing is culturally relevant pedagogy. And the truth is that race shows up in there. I'm going to speak personally. I was brought up not to talk about race. It was like not the polite thing, or if we don't talk about it, it's not there. So it is an uncomfortable subject. And when we started this work, it was really uncomfortable for me. But what I've learned is that if we don't talk about it, we're missing a really big issue that's showing up in our data, because we're saying, don't say anything about that. Don't talk about the race. 10 years ago, we had a huge issue with gender in our data. We didn't have any problem talking about that, and we figured it out, and we don't see that gap anymore. The point being, if we can't talk about it, how do we address the issue? Because we may not all understand everything. I certainly didn't understand 3 years ago what I understand today about, even when you mentioned, Tony, about learning how Hispanic students might learn a certain way. That's a lot of learning we have to do if we want to meet the needs of all of our students. And race does come into the conversation because it shows up in all of our data sets, even if we pull out special education, even if we pull out ML. So it might feel uncomfortable, and that's part of the learning we've had to do with staff. It's certainly been uncomfortable for staff. It was uncomfortable for me. But now that we're talking about it, we're finding solutions to it. And isn't that why we're here, is to figure out how to make sure every student comes out of our system able to learn. So I do wish everybody could go to the learning, to be honest with you, because then when it's broken down, it's like, okay, now that makes sense. It doesn't always make sense because I was waiting for Steve to answer the question, because it's not a simple answer, and it's not something we'll be able to solve right here at this board table tonight. But I do believe if we keep talking about it, we get closer to solutions.
Go ahead.
I appreciate, what's your first name? I'm sorry.
Wendy.
I'm sorry, Wendy. What you said, and I agree. The reason I said I'd like to go there, because I don't have a problem talking about race, but I have a problem someone telling me that I should be ashamed because of my skin color. And some of those are the messaging. It's the messaging. Okay. I don't have a problem talking about race, because there are differences. Okay. Where you brought up, if you were in the inner city, I work in the inner cities all the time. I'm the whitest guy out there 9 times out of 10. I get it. But the thing is, we talk to each other as human beings, and I understand their culture, and I try to get them to understand my job and my culture. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with this new kind of shaming by race, particularly I don't like the word white race, but because I'm lighter than someone else, I got to be ashamed of it. My parents are Italian. My grandparents are Italian. Nobody owned slaves. Do you know what I mean? And we didn't own slaves. We weren't slaves. And there's nobody that at this table that it starts to get down that road when you start saying your skin color. You should be ashamed. You were you come from slave owners, all that stuff. I agree 100% with what you're saying. Yes, thank you.
Yes, and that's not the conversation we're trying to have. Yeah, I agree with you. That's not the conversation we're having. It really isn't. And I did think earlier too, when you were asking about the title of the conference that was dismantling systemic racism. The systemic part is really important, because the conversation we're having is not, what are you individual teacher doing? What are you individual teacher doing? What do you believe? There's a system in place. We're all part of a system. We run a system in Newington Public Schools. So the work we're doing is looking at our system and what it's producing, and then how do we make that better? And part of understanding your system is, how is it developed? Who developed it? How did we come to this decision? Now, how do we make it better? That's the conversation. It really is not meant to be any kind of a shaming, you own this individually kind of mentality at all.
Go ahead, Brittany. Question, and not to get too off topic here. When we talk about our mission statement and equity, and I know we're looking at different ethnic backgrounds, are we also looking at the socioeconomic factors as well?
I'm going to get all my talking in now. It's my second to last meeting. Yes, we look at that is part of the subgroup population we look at. And by the way, when we pull our data by socioeconomic groups, race still cuts across that as well.
So I guess I'm still wondering, you could put a muzzle on me if I did it, but we're Board of Education members, and we're supposed to vote on stuff that we don't really, well, I'll speak for, I don't really understand. I think we should be able to be part of the education and learning, because that way I could confidently say 100%, because I think I am 100% on board, but I don't know what the actual training is. And if the training is something that I'm opposed to, then I would consider that in my voting. It's just, I feel like I'm in a dark room with a blindfold on.
Yeah,
when I'm voting on stuff, and I trust Steve and, superintendent stuff. It's not that I don't trust, but we hear things are said, done everywhere, and and someone goes, "Hey, is that going on in Newington schools?" I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You're a Board of Education member. I don't know. And I hate that. So I don't know.
If I could, first of all, I appreciate your candor. I appreciate everyone else's candor. What I'd like to propose is that we do some additional workshops in that regard. Tonight wouldn't be the night for that, although my presentation will cover a little of it. But I actually applaud everyone's desire to learn more, which is very commendable because this is a very challenging topic. As Ms. Kraus and Mr. Farisi very eloquently stated, it's something we've struggled with mightily. No one around the table from the district side is going to say, this has been a piece of cake and we're experts. We're not. But we know we have to keep going at it. We've looked at the research. We are on the right track, even though it is it's probably the most difficult work I've ever done in my career, and I think most of my colleagues would probably agree with you on that. But we are trying to do what's right for our students. But I applaud everyone's desire to learn more, and I will commit to continuing to provide opportunities for that educational component. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other discussion? Okay, thank you. I think that was a good discussion that we had.
Thank you.
All right, emergency pool repair.
Talk about a switch of topics. We're going to talk about emergency pool repair. So I will start this, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Jacomowitz to fill in the blanks, or in this case, fill in the sand. We have a concern, or a pretty significant concern at our high school, that filtration system, which Lou knows more about than I do, is failing. If it completely fails, it will cost the board several $100,000 in cleanup in addition to the cost of replacing the system. This did happen apparently 20 years ago before my time, where it did fail, and the board was on the hook for quite a bit of cleanup costs, and then it does put the pool out of commission for quite some time. And our pool is used by not only our curricular pieces at the high school, but the sports teams, and we also have our Parks and Recs program rely heavily on our pool. So that is why this is coming to the board as an emergency issue, because we really don't have time to go out and get bids. That would slow the process down by months, and the board does have the authority through board policy and bylaws to authorize emergency repairs. But let me turn it over to Lou for a little bit more of a technical explanation of why this is a problem. Mr. Jacomowitz.
Okay, and Dr. Brumman said the technical description. I would kind of go to a homeowner description that the swimming pool is a hole in the ground you dump money into. And that's sort of in the spot we're in right now, where we have a brains, the heart of the system is getting bad test results at the hospital. You know, the blockage is significant, and, you know, a significant negative event will happen sometime in the not too distant future unless we intercede and, you know, cut that off at the pass. You know, we're fortunate enough, we're just at that transition point of where there's enough lead time where we can get, if we're allowed to act immediately, to be able to go acquire the materials and put ourselves in a position where there'll be no meaningful disruption to swimming activities for, you know, the entire winter season. Because of the, let's say we just sat and waited until it, you know, it failed. If it was happening in November or December, you can just forget about the rest of the swimming season for, you know, both the fall and winter boys and girls swimming athletics programs. You know, the Park and Rec multi-tiered arrangement with swimming lessons, recreational swim for the town, and then special skill building clinics that they offer, and the Newington Swim Club, which is a big entity. I'm not sure what the participation level is with them, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's over 200 kids that are involved with them throughout the year. So because we have the, you know, the real risk of negatively influencing a lot of people in town with this, that I recommend that we, you know, have the authorization allowed, where we just go and take care of this immediately. I know I will be having a call with the rep from the pool company tomorrow morning to update them on the status of the meeting tonight. And if we are allowed to go forward, we're, you know, confident that we will avoid any meaningful disruption this year. Maybe a little bit at the beginning of the season, by a week or two, but that is it. And unfortunately, there's no way to intercede at this point. It's not like you can work around this problem. It's if Dr. Brown would put the pictures up of the pump room that's there. And
Go ahead.
Lou, that's for an entire new system for the pool, right?
Correct.
We're not throwing in pieces and whatever, and then 6 months, something else
No,
gonna
it'll
go.
be,
Because I read his
stripped.
letter, it's a rebuild.
Yes.
So, okay.
Okay, so this is one of the gadgets that's there. So that is the brains, the heart of the system.
Filter.
If that goes bad, you need a transplant. There's no other description to it. And, we're fortunate at this point. They said the lead times are about the shortest they will be during the year. For whatever reason, organizations and places that have pools can maybe in a better position to absorb a winter outage where we won't be able to do that.
That's our peak use, right?
Yeah, continuous use every day, that's there. And, all of this will just be stripped. And what happens, the actual failure will be inside the tank, the, baffles that control the, pushing of water through the pumps to get it all filtered out will fail. And all that sand will just be pumped right out of the tank and into the pool. And when the pumps fail, because of all the friction and the overload on the motors, everything will seize up and you're gonna rip everything out and just have a complete mess on our hands with it. So it's,
Tony?
I just want to cut to the chase. How much so we can get the vote?
it's about $120,000 base price for this. And they said to expect anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for hidden and unforeseen conditions, because you do have underground pipes servicing the pool. You may have to do something with drains and other related apparatus to restabilize the whole system that we just can't tell at this point. But it's not, a huge amount of money, but there will be some, peripheral costs that we can't anticipate at this time.
Clarification. The company that you're working with has assured us to the best of their ability that they have the parts available,
Yes,
that it can
they
be
will
done
be able-
on time and within the budget.
Right.
And
The
I mean,
entire,
with that 10,000 wiggle room, but
the big tanks have to be special ordered, and that's where the 12 weeks come in. The rest of the parts are, relatively available on short notice, couple weeks.
okay, so that the disruption is truly is minimized
Yes.
to the public. Thank you.
And is it safe to assume this went out to bid as well?
I'm sorry?
Did this go out to bid?
No, it did not.
Okay.
The process with going out to bid is I'd have to develop a set of specs, publicize it, usually if it takes me a week to put a bid spec together, depending on the sophistication or even longer, then you have a week where the ad's in the paper, you have a week lead time for the pre-bid, then typically 2 weeks between the pre-bid and the bid opening. And then you would, if everything goes well, you'll be able to award shortly after the bid opening. So you have 8 weeks minimum to do that.
At
And if
that
anything
point,
goes-
we might not have a pool.
Right. that's-
Got it.
Right. Mhm.
Mr. Newton?
Looking at that picture, there's no hazardous material risks or anything, right? With some of that old aging equipment?
No, that was done about 20 years ago. So if there were any hazardous.
It would have been
conditions
removed
done
then?
At that point, right. If there is something, it's just a minimal little glove bag job, but it's not going to be an impact to the performance of the work.
What do you suspect will not get done in replace of fixing the pool here?
Well, one of the things I really had my eye on was the high school tennis courts. They were redone 12 years ago. And each of the last 4 years, we're starting to get more and more significant cracking. And it's the timing of when you have to do work on the tennis courts is starting about this time of year where the ground temperature is up. You really don't have that expansion contraction issue anymore. So the last few years, over the summer, we've been able to do the repairs by the springtime, all the cracks are reopened. So it's almost like it doesn't even matter. So I was trying to look at ways to really minimize the ability for all the water sheeting off the softball fields and the not the lacrosse, it's the field hockey fields. Yeah, and try to describe it as Dr. Rum as I wanted to build a moat around the tennis courts to try to dry it out as much as possible, because we know there's a lot of surface pressure coming from the bottom up because the posts for the nets on the courts are being pushed upward. So there are, in being only 12 years old, we should be getting 20 years or better. So I was looking to do something that probably will have to take a back seat for a while because this is much more imminent.
Okay. Any discussion? Go ahead, further. That's what he was, that's what he was answering,
Yes.
is that, we were looking to do tennis court repairs. But
So it's a
instead we'll
trade-off.
divert that to this, yeah. Is a tennis court unsafe? Is it like your repair, is it tennis courts are they unsafe?
No.
Okay,
No, we were gonna be able to deal with it as a patch, where we're looking at different type of materials, to just fill the existing cracks, because they're getting to the point where they're 3/4 of an inch to an inch wide.
okay,
And that's where somebody can catch the side of their shoe, injure an ankle, injure an ACL. Those are the ones we really need to step in. The
So-
hairline fractures are not an issue.
so Band-Aids for the tennis, Band-Aid will have to happen for at least another year for the tennis courts. Yeah, I do think it's important to replace the pool. The opportunity, the timing works out just, for all the reasons you mentioned, all the people that do use it. It would be best to do it over the summer. And I would entertain a motion. It's on the screen. Go ahead.
Motion to accept the emergency request for funds for the repairs of the Newington High School filtering system.
I think it has to be the one that's, did
Where
you
is
say
it?
emergency? It's on the screen right
Oh,
now.
I saw it. Didn't see it.
We just want to make sure to point out that's an emergency so that we can,
Move that the Newington Board of Education classify the Newington High School pool system, filter system replacement work as an emergency project and instruct the administration to immediately contract for this work to be performed.
Second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All right, so we're voting on the emergency pool replacements. Pool repair.
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Sean Halloran,
Yes.
Anthony Mailing.
Yes.
Timothy Newton,
Yes.
Parati.
Yes,
Motion passed unanimously.
thank you. All right, Lou, your phone call will go well tomorrow, I assume?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Dr. Brummett.
Thank you so much. And I'm last, but hopefully not least. All righty. So I'm going to try to be as abbreviated as I can, given the late hour and the robust conversations that we've already had. But I will provide an overview of my progress toward goals. Because many board members are missing this evening, I will probably review this again in a subsequent meeting, and we'll get into the timing of that momentarily. Here we go. Slow internet. Come on now. Wish I could sing a song, or there we go. So just for the benefit of our newer board members, it's one of the responsibilities of the board is to evaluate the superintendent. And we're at the point in the year now where the end of year evaluation is underway, or should be underway. Okay. So the board typically has a discussion about the evaluation of the superintendent in executive session. I've chosen to present my progress toward the goals in public session because I do think the public's entitled to know what I've been up to as superintendent. But the board in an executive session can discuss that or ask any questions that they want to for the good of their decision making. So at the end of this process, the board does issue a written, in our case, or the board's case, typically a written draft for the performance of the superintendent. And the executive, we have an executive session where they share that draft for discussion. And the final performance evaluation and superintendent contract is presented to me ideally prior to July 1. Any written report of the Board of Ed, that the Board of Ed does create relative to my performance is subject to FOIA. So it's very important that whatever the board puts in that report, they're willing for that to be shared publicly. And I will tell you that there are occasions where newspapers will FOI it, so they can publish it or do whatever they choose to do with that. So the board votes on the contract in open session before July 1. I believe we anticipate that will happen at our July 12th board meeting. So those are the mechanics of the process. Here is the current district goal that we've been working on. I think that hopefully it's very well known to the board. It is something that I see as a collective effort between district office and all 7 schools. And it's my hope that during the course of the year, the board has had a glimpse into what we're doing at all of our schools through the presentations that have come forward to the board. Why are we doing this work? Again, I've shown this demographic chart many, many times. Even in the short time since I've been here, and I arrived in 2019, we have become increasingly diverse with also increasing challenges economically and increased number of students who have English as their second language. Here's another chart that exemplifies that. We're at this point in time, close to 10% of our kids do not have English as their primary language. Here are a sampling of the number of languages in the district. This is just the top 6. We have upwards of about 15 different languages that our children speak in their homes. These are the top 6. And again, our racial diversity has dramatically changed since 2011. If you look at the prevalence of our Hispanic population, it has gone up from 2011 to present day, close to doubled. And that's probably our most growing population is our Hispanic population. Our Asian population has grown somewhat. Our Black population has grown somewhat. And concurrently, the white population has gone down. These are all factors in why we make some of our educational decisions that have been part of a robust discussion tonight. Here's another reason why we talk about these things. As you look at our data, and this is current data as of May, the green line represents where we want all of our students to shoot for. And this is reading data, our benchmark assessment. As you can see, over time, all of our subgroups have grown this year. That is not the issue. You can see that our Black students have improved by 20 points. Our Hispanic students have improved a little less, unfortunately, only about 8 points. And our white students have grown quite a bit. If you look at that graphically, the 3 lines there show you how everyone is approaching to where we want them to be. So our white students have really exceeded the goal. Our Black students have come close. They're just a little bit below the goal line, but our Hispanic students continue to be below where we'd like all of our kids to be. Hence, again, why we focus in on different approaches for our children. Similarly, these are our math benchmark scores, and this is just one dipstick. We have many, as our presenters tonight mentioned, IXL. Soon we await the SBAC scores. Oh, there's a question. Go ahead.
Doctor, just a thought for next year when we do this. Is it possible to break it down by race, by male or female?
Sure, we can do that.
I'm just thinking with my history in law enforcement, and I spent many years, a lot of households don't have the male figure, and I'm wondering if it's when the teenagers, male, are getting to a certain point, is that where we're losing them because they're actually acting as the parent?
I can tell you from, though it's not in my presentation this evening, our kids come in at a very similar footing in kindergarten. And as the grades go on, by 3rd grade, this disparity is evident. So it does happen at a very young age. And that's why we feel so compelled and, morally obligated to work on this. Now, again, so I can certainly do that, but we do know from our previous analyses that we do see this gap forming at a very early age. Yeah, we do, unfortunately, but it is what we've looked at. Again, here you can see that all of our students have grown this year. But again, our Black and Hispanic students do less well. They've grown, they're getting closer to that green line, but they're certainly not there yet. So these are some of the whys of why we're focusing on this work. We have had many, for the past several years, we have focused on 3 critical canon in our district, our SRBI guidelines, which is scientifically research-based interventions. That is how we organize ourselves. How do we organize our teams, our PLCs, our various equity components throughout the district. Our Courageous Conversations framework is how we show up. Again, that is why we do isolate race in our discussions. I know the board would like more training on why we do that, but that is something that we have found is important to do. And then, as we already discussed, we are all in agreement that culturally responsive teaching is an important aspect of that. And this is what we're trying to do to address student performance. You did see some of those outcomes from building thinking classrooms tonight that does seem to get at that. The how do we go about this? One of the things that I participate in on a weekly basis, along with Wendy and Steve and Dr. Hairston, and Kristen Freeman, who's not here this evening, is our district equity leadership team. We spend significant time every week for 2 hours going through the work that we're doing. How are these decisions being made? How are we supporting all of our schools? How are all our schools doing? That's kind of our hub that then deploys resources to our various schools. How do we know that we're making any impact on this work? We have many ways of going about that. We do rounds visits. Today, in fact, we spent the entire day at John Patterson School observing their PLCs, their professional learning communities, for how they are attacking this work and the progress they're making. Obviously, we have to look at student outcomes. How are our students faring on all standardized measured and non-standardized measures? We've conducted audits. I'll share some of those results this evening. And we are very wedded to and committed to establishing routines for equity. And ironically, it came up today at Patterson about how much our kids are relying on our equity routines in everything that we do, and then the adults for that matter. So those have proven to be a very important practice, and they're research-based. As you develop routines, they become embedded in your practice and they become part of your system. What are some highlights at all of our schools? What are some of the positives at our schools? The high school this year, with support from Kristen Freeman and others, has made some major realignments of our teams. Now, it's no small feat to realign anything at a high school because it's a lot of kids and a lot of adults, but we've successfully looked at our professional learning communities, our equity teams up there, our school climate teams, and they've really made a concerted effort to be focused on how to build more equitable outcomes for our students. At Kellogg, you saw the building thinking classrooms already. They're really a model site. They were kind of the start of all that, and now that is breaking off into our high schools, our other middle school, and our elementary schools. And also Martin Kellogg's looking very strenuously at what's called restorative discipline practices that are more in line with how to really help kids understand what they need to do differently versus more of a punitive impact that is kind of more traditional. Wallace, the Wallace team has made a lot of strides, and our leaders there have been asked to present at both local and national level conferences because of that, what they've done as leaders to move that school along. Ruth Chafee has done what we call our professional learning community, and they have several teams there that are really becoming models for the district. Green, this year, eGreen has had their PLCs increase focus on historically marginalized students, and they're talking about that more and more, and that's impacting their classroom practices as well. Patterson has extraordinarily strong equity and leadership teams that are ready and stand ready to help transition our new leader there. And I think that's important that the work will continue even with a leadership change. Reynolds has been really busy with their project, and that has been a lot of work on the part of the teachers to bend and fold with that. But this summer, they are going to spend substantial time on their discipline practices to get those to be more equitable and actually support all students. So pre-K, I'm very, very proud of this. In the time that I've been in the district, we've had a real big expansion of our pre-K programs with the support of the board and with the support of the town with some MOU structures. But if you look going forward from 1920, we had about 60 kids in pre-K. This year, we have about 122 kids in pre-K, and next year, we anticipate over 150 kids. How are we doing that? Well, we have currently 2 full-day programs at, right now, they're located at Chafee and Green. Next year, they'll be at all 4 elementary schools. Every school will now have an AM and a PM program, and our need is so great at Reynolds, we're going to have 2 AM PM programs. It's important for the board to know, though, that is not requiring us to add any additional teachers. How is that possible? Well, because of our kindergarten age eligibility change, next year, 3 kindergarten teachers will be teaching pre-K. Right now, we do know that at Patterson, that will be Jill Hinton, and at Reynolds, that will be, Leslie Keener. Green, we're still figuring that out. So, but that'll be because of the numbers there and how many kids did apply for waiver and get one or not get one. We do have 3 teachers that are now flexible to teach pre-K. So all of these pieces are allowing us to expand substantially in the pre-K arena. And you'll also be pleased, I'm still doing estimates, but we anticipate our tuition revenues next year will nearly double. So those are all pieces that help, again, offset the cost of pre-K without having to add positions. Some of the things that the board would need to look at for my evaluation is, what have I done to improve instruction in the district? Well, we've already shown the board on previous presentations that our student achievement is back to pre-COVID levels. However, previous slides show that we still have a gap that we're working on. We do know that our equity efforts have impacted classroom climates. We see that in our rounds visits. We have a ways to go yet, but we are seeing some preliminary impact. We've also been able to, through our multiple efforts, the board, administration, to maintain or retain some ESSER positions to support student achievement. And that's done through the reallocation of resources, namely grant resources. So that means we're able to retain multilingual teachers, board certified behavior analysts, and some special education teachers that we added during COVID. They're able to stay with those reallocations. We have had a significant reduction in expulsions this year. Last year we had, I should say, drug-related expulsions. Last year we had 10. This year we've only had 1. Why is that? We've added a grant-funded SEL and mental health counselor, and through that opportunity, our kids are now getting retraining or education in mental health issues that often lead to drug use, or if they have had opportunity to use drugs, we're giving them the opportunity to, instead of an expulsion, get some training on the dangers of drug use and the impact. And again, that has had a substantial positive impact on fewer kids missing school through expulsion. We are doing our rounds program. That is something we've been doing for a number of years. We visit each school formally twice. Many of us visit informally throughout the year. But again, by going out through our adult district equity leadership team into every school, we're able to look at firsthand what's going on with the work. We've also been working on social and emotional learning discipline work at all schools. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Our DELT, as I've mentioned previously, is designed to impact and support all schools. So all of us in various ways are working with administrators and teachers to move forward the work. We realize they need our help as well as the help of some of the training that Mr. Farisi described earlier to move forward. The Nor'easter Academy was designed this year as a pilot. It is to help kids who are not successful at the high school. We're proud to report that the vast majority of the kids who went through that program this year are expected to earn the credits that we wanted them to earn through the program. That'll enable them to stay on target for graduation. And we did write a substantial grant that we are waiting to hear about the outcome that will allow us to run the program at low or no cost next year. Fingers crossed that we get that grant. Organizational management is something else that a superintendent is supposed to be skilled at doing. And I believe this year our successful budget season collaboration with the mayor and the town elected officials did allow us to have the biggest budget increase in a decade. And again, it allowed us, and I'm sure you've followed the news, where many districts are laying off substantial numbers of teachers. Through this collective work, we are not having to do that. And that's a huge win for our kids and a huge win for our climate. We are continuing to do maximum leverage of grant funds. We are continuously writing grants. I did just write collaboratively a grant with both the town and the high school for a school-based health center. If that goes through, that'll be a huge asset to our kids, especially those that might be challenged to get health services. I'll keep the board posted on whether that is awarded. The Reynolds project is near completion. Ms. Parati and others have served on that committee and been integral in the success of that. The other exciting news is now that we're getting to the end of the project, many of these ad alternates are coming back in because of the committee did a fabulous job of leveraging the resources to the maximum level. We'll probably, I know we're going to get some pre-K playground opportunities there. The canopy in the front entrance was initially cut out. It's back in, and we're now hoping to refresh the playgrounds that weren't part of the project, but now that the school looks brand new, the playgrounds look a little not as nice. So we believe there'll be some resources to do that. I believe our Wallace Building Committee is meeting tomorrow night for the first time. I can't be there because we're doing some interviews for elementary principals, but through the work of our legislators, now we went from a 57% reimbursement rate to a 75% reimbursement rate. That's hats off to our legislators, but also that will save the town a substantial amount of money. So that's a win-win all the way around. I've been involved. We have 2 key positions available in our district right now for elementary principals. Mr. Farisi and Ms. Davis have done a fabulous job with that. Tomorrow night is the meet and greet. We have 4 finalists, and I hope to announce the 2 successful candidates late next week so that the schools know who's going to be their principal before school gets out. I do a lot of work in the community. I'm a member of Alpha Delta Kappa, which is a charitable organization of teachers and administrators, and we do a lot of fundraising. If you're familiar with the military WIST, we do scholarship fundraising and a lot of work with our food pantry. We do work at the holidays to support families in need. I was very pleased with our strategic planning process. We had over 60 participants, including members of the community and the Chamber of Commerce. We collaborate all the time with Human Services. They were co-signers on the school-based health center grant. They've been involved in many of our drug prevention efforts. We collaborate with them. They provided resources to us because the town gets a tremendous amount of money from marijuana revenues. And now we are sharing in those revenues and they help us to do some educational programs. We collaborate with the library all the time. They're in our schools. We advertise their programs. It's a very robust relationship. We have a collaboration with the Senior Center, both for the district-wide art show, and our students are over there for many things. An example of that is the NHS Pen Pals program with some of our seniors. So there's a lot of goodwill there with our senior citizen population. We collaborate with Parks and Rec. They've allowed us to use some of their space for the Nor'easter Academy, namely their gym, and they've revitalized the Teacher Tuesday program so our young kids have a place to go when our teachers are in PD. There's been a real robust increase there. We have an outreach and collaboration with some of our local religious leaders. Our local congregational church hosts the Got Launch Summer Program. We allowed them to do a pajama day in order to raise funds for that program, feeding our children this summer when school's not in session. And our Taste of Ramadan allowed our folks to bring in a nice dinner that was hosted this year at our high school. It was attended by a wide range of stakeholders, including the police and other local agencies, so they could get a taste for the culture of our colleagues in the Muslim community. And I have rolled out this year a quarterly newsletter. I think one of our board members recently was asking, I do send out a weekly update to the board. I've kind of collapsed that, sort of a Reader's Digest edition for our community, and that goes out 4 times a year, both to everyone within NPS, but also it's on the website, and we send it out to the community at large, so they can really see all the good things happening in the district. It's important for the board to know what's going on, though it sounds like I need to do a better job of that with regard to our equity efforts, but there are weekly updates. I do spotlight many things in there around equity, but along with all the things that our students and our teachers are doing that are really positive. It's a robust report that captures so much that's going on in the district. Anytime a board member calls me or emails me, I get back very quickly. I also have brought forward our administrative teams and our teacher teams to give the board a sampling of what's going on in our schools. I also give the board information about state and federal legislative updates and training opportunities through organizations. We have had trainings about legal responsibilities, and we've brought in Shipman and Goodwin, our legal team. And I do try to update the board anytime there's any police activities at the school, so that never surprised by a citizen calling you up and wondering why is there a police officer at the schools. We want you to be informed so you know how to respond to a community member. And then finally, I'm involved in a lot of professional organizations. I do feel that there's been tremendous collaboration with the mayor and the town manager and the council, all the departments we have a great relationship with. We had a meeting last week with all of our first responders. We are working on a very important program about what would we do to evacuate our high school in the event of a significant emergency. And all of our first responders are very actively involved in that, as well as our town officials. I am the incoming president for the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, so that's an exciting opportunity. I participate on the CCSU Advisory Committee, where I help advise, programs for future administrators. I'm also an adjunct professor there, so I work with a lot of up-and-coming administrators. I co-chair the CAPS Teaching and Learning Committee. I'm very active in the legislative committee and testify at the state capitol frequently, mainly to get more funding for school districts or towns, because it's all the same pot of money funds all of us. I'm a member of the Reading Leadership Implementation Committee. And I have mentored, every year I mentor interns. This year I've mentored 2. I know many of you have seen them come to the board meeting. And I also mentor a lot of new superintendents to make sure they, have opportunity to grow in their skills and have their questions answered. And I've served for a long time on the Advisory Committee for Intergovernmental Relations. That's a committee that is a collaboration of town officials, state officials, legislators, and we kind of keep them abreast of the important issues in the legislative community. I am passing the baton on that particular committee next year to a colleague of mine who will have a little more time to be a part of that. And then we've had a lot of stakeholder feedback. I mentioned earlier, we had both surveys and focus groups. Parents participated in a survey, and that allowed us to look at strengths and opportunities. The good news is they feel that they can be strong advocates for their kids. They are committed by their own admission to our diversity work. They feel welcomed in schools. They feel that many of our staff members are getting to know their kids, and they know that the equity work does give all the children an opportunity to succeed. They think that NPS is doing a great job, and when they think about other school systems, and about 86% of the parents that completed the survey felt that their kids have or do have or will have an equitable experience in the school system. So obviously there's a little work to be done there, but there are things that they mentioned that they want even more parent involvement. They feel that we need to get a zero tolerance bully policy, and I think we'll be able to educate everyone more about that as we revise our discipline systems. They feel we could always add more supports for our 504 special ed kids. They feel welcomed in our schools, but they think they should be there more often for lunch and reading opportunities. We do allow that, but I wonder, some of this might be a throwback to the COVID days, but I do know parents are allowed to visit the schools and read. But we'll work on that, seeing why that was a concern. This particular survey was filled out by 126 parents, so would have liked to get more, but that was at least a sampling. Our educators and administrators all participated in focus groups over the course of about a year. And here are the outcomes of that. That showed a strong commitment to our equity work. They believe that there's collaboration within the district. They believe there's enhanced communication with our technology. And they believe that everyone knows basically what's going on and that they are committed to the equity work. Some of the things that our educators and administrators suggested should be improved is that they want to empower staff to do more of the work, share best practices, providing more consistent and engaging messaging to all members of the community. Many of our educators feel like they know what the word means, but they need more opportunity to apply it to their daily work, and we are working on that. They think that there's more translation needed for the ML families, and we are missing some practical application pieces. So, and 4 out of the 7 folks want to get more involved with school-wide communications, but they feel they aren't asked enough. I will say one of the pieces that we're doing, well, we're doing a lot to address some of these concerns, but we've just got our keynote speaker for the fall convocation, and it's the author of Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain, Zaretta Hammond, and she's assured me that her remarks will very much get at some of these concerns. And if you're wondering, is that beyond our ability to pay? No, we got a discounted rate because she wants to support the work that we're doing in the district, so we got a very reasonable rate. And she's also going to a neighboring district, so we kind of collaborated. What are our students saying? They want to improve or help to improve equitable practices. They believe the schools and the programs at our schools, the clubs, do make them feel welcome and included. They believe Power School is a great way to get at some of the information they need. They acknowledge not everyone uses it. They believe that when teachers are supporting them, there is trust with their teachers. They also felt very trusting relationships with paraprofessionals. They said not all their teachers make them feel trusted. They don't have a trusting relationship with all their teachers, so that's certainly an area of improvement. 100% of the students that participated in the focus group felt they knew how to access Power School. Not sure why that came up in this survey, but it did. They want, though, under opportunities to have more opportunity for decision-making. I think we heard that loud and clear from our kids last week. They believe that we should continue to diversify our workforce and more course offerings. They want also to provide better effective translation for families. And lot of feedback from our kids that our staff needs to be more diverse. They indicated that the only people of color they see are more of our coaches, our janitors, our paraprofessionals, and our data bears that out. We have far more diversity in our non-certified staff than we do in our certified staff, but it's something we are actively working on. And again, I was surprised, but we have to delve a little deeper into the translation piece because we do translate all of our communication and we have our translation service, but clearly some of the kids felt that that was not enough. And some of the kids did indicate that they have times when they don't feel supported by their peers or staff. So again, that again strengthens our resolve to do more work in that vein, our equity work. All right. There was a staff survey that went out. There are 2 questions specific to the role of the superintendent. Question number 1 was, does the superintendent's office understand and respond to and interact with all stakeholders to improve student achievement? And these are my results for the past 5 years. They seem very positive to folks feel that my office is able to do that. And then the superintendent has clearly articulated goals for the district and inspires staff to work toward achieving them. That also was a very positive piece. And that makes me feel good that the staff, by and large, all but 3%, feel they know where we're headed and why. And again, just to set the table for next year, we will continue to our work with SRBI and our PLC work. We're going to continue the training because clearly survey results indicate that teachers want more training, especially about How do I apply this in my daily work? We're going to expand the culture responsive pedagogy. I already mentioned Zaretta Hammond will be our convocation keynote. Our SEL and discipline practices need to continue to be worked on. We're going to leverage our new teacher evaluation system that Mr. Freese touched upon this evening as a lever for equity. We didn't get into the rubrics, but many of them speak to equitable practices in the classroom. And thanks to our participants in the strategic planning process, we are going to collapse all that feedback and revise and publish our strategic plan for 2024-27. Continuing our work around the culture of equity, and these are our pillars, along with being racially conscious, and then breaking those down, culturally relevant pedagogy. We've talked about that a lot. That is something that we'll continue to work on for this foreseeable future. What am I teaching? Why am I teaching it? How am I going to teach it? These are all pieces that we consider. How will I know that the intended outcomes are achieved? And what do I do if a student isn't doing well? How do I make these decisions and consider all the kids that I have in my classroom? We've also been working this year on our discipline system. As I mentioned earlier, we're trying to make it more equitable and more where students are learning from their mistakes versus a more punitive system. Research bears that out, that a restorative system where kids, an example of a restorative piece is rather than just have a detention from doing something, maybe destroying some piece of school property, I've got to repair that, or I've got to help the custodian clean up after whatever situation I didn't adhere to the school rules about. So really understanding the impact of my actions. We're also trying to make sure that our discipline system is closely aligned to our portrait of a graduate. These are all the pieces that we're working on right now. We're not there yet, so many of our teachers would love us to move a lot faster, but we know that there has to be a lot of instruction around our discipline system. Right now, every school is working on 3 to 5 behavioral expectations that are clear and something that we can teach all our kids about. We are using evidence-based and culture responsive instruction. We've talked about that. We want to make sure that our policies and procedures go along with all of this so everything is very coherent. Teams around the district are currently or will use data that will measure and show the impact of our systems. We need to do a better job of that, especially at the elementary level. A lot of professional development is going on now and will go on next year around this, and then we'll assess our work. What does our data show? Are we improving outcomes for kids or not? And lastly, the social emotional pillar, which is giving students the ability to acquire skills to develop healthy identities, manage their emotions, achieve their goals, maintaining positive relationships. And that is layered with proactive decision-making, identifying and examining evidence of equity or inequity, getting that feedback, and designing educational opportunities that promote our equity work. So that is my overview of the work being done. And I have to say, I put it on my evaluation, but this is a collective effort. I couldn't be anywhere close to where we are in the district without the efforts of Mr. Freese, Ms. Kraus, and some folks that aren't here tonight, Ms. Freeman, Dr. Hairston, and our entire cabinet and our administrators are all active and integral to the work that we're trying to accomplish. And it's a work in progress, but we are very devoted and dedicated to continuing that. So I will turn it back over to the chair to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Brummett. I have asked Ms. Weaver and Ms. Carr to collaborate on writing the evaluation that Dr. Brummett talked about earlier today, or earlier at the beginning of this presentation. And then we'll have an opportunity to discuss. We mentioned we're gonna not do the executive session tonight. We'll do it next time when more of the board can be here. So we'll do that and then vote on your contract. So if there's a sorry, meant to say, if you have something that you want added to the report, to the review, please let Brittany and Jessica know. Just you can email them or call them, whatever, so that they can include it if there's something that you want added that was not in this presentation or something that you've noticed over the course of the year. So ask that you do that timely so that they can put it into the report. And then if you have any just generic questions or comments right now, we'll take them. But again, we're going to save the more detailed discussion for next time. Go ahead, Tony.
Sean showed me how to get to that, and I appreciate that. But will we be able to go back and look at that, or is that gonna be gone now? That whole presentation?
I will send it out to the entire board.
Okay.
So you can peruse it and then, as we mentioned, next session, we'll have an executive session for more questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it will be uploaded, this meeting will be uploaded to YouTube as well. So you can go back and the Newington Public Schools YouTube channel, and you can review it from there too. Mr. Holleran.
I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I'm going to dig into it a little further and digest it as well. And I think it's a good move to postpone the executive session when we have more members, because it's one of our three primary responsibilities: policy, budget, supervise the superintendent. So I think it would be better if we had a fuller representation and a more collaborative discussion.
Go ahead, Ms. Carr.
I agree with what Sean said. If we have a second, can we go back to the beginning? There was a chart with that 80% benchmark, I believe. Yes. Can you go to the next one too? Sorry. So this is grades up to 4, correct?
Yes, this particular chart is grade K4 math.
Is there a way before the next meeting we can get the other grades as well? Because I know in the strategic meeting, I took photos of the graphs we had there. And I know I was showing the winter benchmarks, and grades 5 through 8, there were no ethnic groups hitting that 80% benchmark. So I'm curious what that looks like for May of 2024.
Yes, we should be able to. I don't know, Ms. Kraus is the keeper of data.
Yes, we actually have district data team meeting Friday, and the middle school data was just not all in yet when we pulled that graph. So that's why you're seeing that. And then additionally, just so you know, the middle school has changed their math universal screener this year to the iExcel one that Mr. Bruno was speaking about. So that's been a trial, and we've been having to re-norm it. Most companies set a norm that you follow. That's where we get to which kids are at benchmark and which are not. But for this one, we're having to set a local norm so that we've pulled that data out of the K4 data because of that. Whereas on the other graph, you can see K8 together in reading because we use the same assessments throughout. But we can absolutely give you a graph for the 5-8 math data that we do have, just knowing that it's a new assessment this year.
Thank you. Question? Anything else? Okay, thank you, Dr. Bremmett. Lots of work going on this year. All right, so like I mentioned, we're going to table our executive session for next meeting on the 12th, and that will bring us back to public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. Don't think we have anybody with us. So we can move on to remarks by board members. I'll just want to officially, publicly congratulate all of our fabulous artwork. I think the camera panned over there a little bit during the meeting, so hopefully people got to see it. But or you can visit the 3rd floor of the town hall and look at it in the Board of Education lobby. And so congratulations to all those students that we recognized earlier this evening. And I am still just very, very appreciative of the Martin Kellogg math presentation today. I think it was amazing. I like that format. So if there's any more interactive presentations we can have, so that can be something that you add to your goals for next year. And yeah. And yeah, I guess I'll save comments for next meeting, but yeah,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. My computer lasted. I don't know what's going on with it.